Ready? All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday, April 5th meeting of the Planning Board. Our members are Joyce Capiello, who is our new ex officio down at the end, Donna Masucci next to her. And then we have John Driscoll, Bob Tessier, Ron Allard, and to my right, or I guess the viewing public's left, be Vanessa Price, who's the town planner, John Huckins, who's our code enforcement officer, and Barbara Irvine, who handles all of our staff duties.
Connor.
Online, we have Carol Ogilvy, who is also a planning consultant at this point. And I am Andy Knapp. And behind all of the technologies, the town administrator, Connor McIver. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, what was that? No. So Donna this evening will be a voting member since Buddy Hackett, our full chair member, is not present this evening.
In memory of Jeff, everyone please silence your phones.
Yeah, yes.
What he has to say.
Thank you. Minutes review and approval for a motion to approve minutes from March.
I have a correction.
All right.
Under nomination for chairman and nomination for vice chairman, that was not unanimous.
Oh, you voted against yourself.
As did Andy,
I think I said reluctantly.
No, you said no.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I followed your
You're
lead.
right, I did.
Followed your lead.
No, it was the reluctantly was afterward when they said, will you really do this? Okay. Good correction. Any other corrections?
Consequence, but still a correction.
Motion to approve the minutes. Looking for.
Second. Make a motion.
I'll make the motion then.
Second.
Okay, we'll get a second for our roll call vote. Joyce?
Well, maybe I won't vote on the minutes.
You're allowed to vote on them as long as you review them, but you don't have to.
Lucia.
What?
Tessie, you're right.
Allard, aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. That takes care of the housekeeping. From the design review, the applicant has withdrawn his application, so nothing for design review. And moving into our action items, we have 265-11 and 12-RC-22-SR. Owner Jeff Sullivan and Rock Iron Repair, request by the applicant using the construction of a 3,600 commercial welding fabrication facility, along with a 3,600 square foot in the future on a 3.5 acre lot, Cape Highway, map 265, lots 11 and 12, regional commercial zone district. Barry Geyer is here to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones Beach Engineers. This project is 3.9 and commercial zone, consists of 2 lots. West side of Route 125, just town line. Some existing conditions up there. This is 2 lots. To the right is north. Intent of this project is to construct a site to house rock iron repair with machinery specializing in asphalt, concrete, and concrete plants. Because of that, the vast majority of their work is done off-site, but they do need a location to store machinery, material, parts, etc. The intent is to construct a 3,600 square foot building with a future 3,600 square foot building behind it. Drives and parking are gravel with asphalt apron onto Route 25. lot will be serviced by on-site well and septic system. The stormwater will be collected in ditches adjacent to the drive. And will be directed to an infiltration basin in the southeast corner of the development. The project does require a section 9.6 special permit for construction buffer. Proposed impact is 1,396 square feet. Construction of the ditch, and you can see, I don't know how well you can see that, but the location of the impact is here on the west side of the driveway. There is no gravel or drive within the buffer. It's just grading in the ditch. The applicant did meet with the Conservation Commission on the 24th, where the project was well received. If the board decides to complete a site walk, the commission would like to attend. I'm sure they would be invited, but that was one of their comments. We are in receipt of the staff comments. Most of the items are easily remedied. You need to look at the fire chief's comment regarding the 20-foot access area around the building. And the town planner did suggest that drainage be reviewed by the town engineer. With that, happy to take any questions the board can.
Yes, you would like to provide some commentary to the board beforehand?
As you review stuff, there's many technical comments on here, and as the planning board, I know that Jeff had this could probably be your discussion, but I just want your attention to many, and this applicant's not the only one that has these kind of comments. They're just more technical things that maybe the board may want to look at. Following checklist, because a lot of the things are like not all the notes are on the title page, those sorts of things that we may want to look at later as a board as we're doing our site review checklist. I noticed that a lot, not just the other projects have not always followed this part. And I also have some notes. Points, additional things that the applicant has that are not the technical comments. Thank you.
Well, to follow up on those comments, I mean, things that are required, are we supposed to get a rendering and a lighting plan and all that stuff is part of the requirements, right?
Proposing a light plan, this is a, right, it's not expecting, don't typically have people that come, public doesn't come into this site, it's the employees, that's it. So lighting really not necessary. The building is a steel building, nothing fancy. I can get you a rendering for the next meeting.
I mean, 3.7 building rendering, 3.8 illumination plans. I mean, those are some of the, like Jeff takes care of the stuff. That's kind of stuff that's on the list of things that are supposed to be.
A requirement for the lighting plan thing usually comes in more as a detail organization because of people now all about public safety. So that said, it says that if you're going to have one, you have to have that plan. I guess we can look at the regulations on the lighting requirement, and it could be one of them things that could be asked because of the use is not there. But it all depends on how you read it, whether you feel it's required or not required because of how the regulation is written.
I mean, John, I think it would fit in the low category where, industrial employee kind of parking. So that to me is where it fits. I mean, I'm not against a waiver, but I think there's got to be a decision where you think it fits. And if you don't want to do it or you do want to do it, you got to.
Right, I guess what I would say is looking for input we're not proposing a lighting plan, but if the board decides that it needs lighting, then we can provide lighting. That's kind of what we're here for, to determine, we don't believe that we need lighting because there is no public that will be attending this except the people that work there.
Well, table 7, recommended lighter levels, there's 3 categories. There's high, medium, and low. There's no none.
Right. So
So,
if that's the wish of the board that we provide a lighting plan, we can do that.
or justification, if you don't want to do none, it just, whatever, but it's got to be addressed.
Typical lighting that's required. Go. Parking in the lots. Show that as probably get
Right.
range of what they're looking for.
Right, usually as well as when we get a rendering, it also will show where the lighting,
Fixtures
what
are,
the lighting is.
Yep.
lighting it's on.
shows where the fixtures are on the building, it defines what the fixtures are.
As much as it may not be a building the public is going into, the folks that work there are still technically part of the public, and you do have to make sure they're protected and safe as they come
Absolutely.
and go.
And the use could evolve over time. So,
They often do.
often do.
So you have 11 spaces that,
They're actually not going to have that many employees. They have like 4 that are on.
and you'll have security lighting around.
Well, yes,
There's this parking space requirement too, based on square footage.
exactly. That's why we have spaces. So 11 spaces are required. We don't typically see that. The applicant isn't here tonight because he's off-site working at a place over in Warren, I think, a drive back. That's typically what they do, but most of their time is spent at the plant. So this is just for when they need to store material or do something in the shop.
Which I think also kind of helps drive that lighting aspect in that if you think about the shoulder months and the winter months, any work they're doing, they're coming home. They're probably leaving before sun up and they're coming home in the dark. Other items?
I mean, I think just following up on the Conservation Commission, I mean, this thing's got some pretty significant wetlands and, I mean, there is some wetlands impact. The septic system is right between the 2 wetlands, it's kind of sandwiched in there. It seems, as long as it passes, but it seems very tight to me.
Just to clarify, there is no wetland impact.
What you're in the buffer.
Impact.
Yeah. But, the septic system is sandwiched right between the 2 wetlands right there. So, do we need
Wetland
between the
is not in
buffers.
the buffer. Wetland is not in the buffer. It's just a little bit of a fill extension.
Yeah, what I'm talking about, John, is the septic system is right here, there's wetlands here and here. So it's just really being sandwiched right between the 2.
Yeah, but it meets all the requirements. If you tried to move it over to the building, then you would have no parking. That's where.
Yeah.
And it meets the requirements where it is. So there's a point to where you got to use the lot that you got.
Yeah, I know, it's just tight.
Is the other,
Okay, it's okay, but it's tight.
is the other future building expected to tie into the same septic and septic field or?
They won't have an office in that bill or a restroom in that building. That's more for just cold storage is what they're going to do.
And that's where the issue of 20 feet from the fire chief, should have access to within 50 feet of all corners of both buildings. So you've got to be able to have that 20-foot access to get around the front building. So he's within his back corner of the second building, future development, because when you approve this in 2 phases, it doesn't come back here for phase 2. So you make sure that it meets all the requirements now in this approval.
So that's one of the major things we have to look at is if we're going to narrow the building a little bit and extend it back, or how we're going to approach the fire chief's requirements.
Got to have the parking in the 20 feet around. So it's kind of hard to squeeze it over, but the topography drops off going down to the flatlands without dropping it. It is a lot. It's narrow. I mean, it's tight. I agree.
Yeah, he'd been trying to find a location to build something for a long time. And every time he'd find something, it was gone before you can actually purchase it. So this came up, he purchased it before he talked to anybody about it. So,
Well, it's right at 25, so we really want development, so.
yeah.
From that perspective, it's good.
Other board commentary.
Things like that, we want more information. That way you accept it, you can open the public comment, you can take comments from the abutters and everything else, so they get a direction on how to move forward. But if you don't accept the application as complete, you don't hold a hearing. So just so you understand the process.
Okay. I mean, I just think between the technical issues that Vanessa brought up and the missing,
Which can all be conditions of approval anyway.
So, and
He'll fix a lot of.
it's borderline, it's
Before we get to that.
it's complete or not, it's.
the most of the items that Ms. Price brought up are dot your I, cross your T kind of items. They're actually there, but maybe not in the exact location that is required by.
That's why Vanessa might be worth having a discussion when we're doing our site review regulations. Does it really matter what takes on as long as the information is available?
I mean, we can have a discussion, but I think let's do it the right way. I mean, if it's not where we think it's gonna be, we can fish around for it. You know, to me, it's annoying. I mean, this one has, you know, the wetlands buffer it's not on the ledger, you know, there's little things like that drive me crazy when there's a lot, they use a symbol, it's not a ledger. So it takes me more time to review it if it's not clear and it's not where I expect it to be. So I think Vanessa's right. Let's keep on reinforcing, I mean, that it should be where it's supposed to be, where we say it's supposed to be. Makes it easier.
The only point was that these are easily addressed issues. So if you accept it tonight, we can discuss it. You can, if the board wants to, send it out to the town engineer for review. And then next time we come in, we'll have the town engineer's comments that we could hopefully have addressed, the town planner's comments that we could have addressed. And then if there's any items left by the board, we can address those as well.
Okay. Looking for a motion to accept the application as complete.
I'll make a motion to accept this.
Usually gotta use your references thing.
Bob made the motion and John Driscoll seconded the motion. Full vote starting on this side, so Andy Knapp, aye.
Allard, aye.
Jesse, aye. Driscoll, aye.
Happy yellow eye.
So are there any other presentation items, anything else that you'd like to?
I would just say, I mean, this is typically where we would discuss the 9.6, but because we do have to comply with comment, may have to adjust that as well. So I would skip that, but if to discuss sending out to review, that is logical. Barrington votes on that or sending it out to review.
Now, the 9.6 you're looking for, right now, it's basically construction in the buffer. The road is not in the buffer, just construction in the buffer.
Correct. Can you see on the screen, red is the only area that is the buffer impact. That is no pavement. We're actually using gravel. It's not pavement. Gravel is not in the buffer. It's the ditch and the grading associated with the ditch. So
Is that gonna be better or worse when you come back?
it'll be better because we're actually treating the stormwater. Oh, is it going to be, you mean to come back next time?
Yeah.
That's the question I don't answer.
This is similar to the issue we had, like even when town hall was done. There was that little slope impact that was behind the building where it went down close to that wetland. Just part of the extensions, it's not part of the actual use of the parking lot and stuff, just to support the parking lot. As far as third-party review you asked about, it's basically a consensus of the board, they want it. On this particular application, I agree with Vanessa, I think there's enough drainage details and stuff here that you're gonna want it reviewed to make sure that it all works. So I would think the board will want to send that up. It doesn't necessarily need to be a vote, it's just gonna be a.
And you're looking at, you're requesting the 9.6 because of the 13, you're estimating it out as 1,396 square feet of impact,
Yes, sir.
that buffer. And,
Which is right.
yeah, oh, I see, yeah, I see it here it is.
Yeah.
1,396 square feet.
But he doesn't want to do that tonight. Redesign it to see what he can come back with, make it either better. Or if he has to make the parking plus the 20-foot road for the fire chief coming on it. So he's trying to find out signs are going to impact that. You guys are just the 6.
Correct.
And he might be making the building longer and narrower.
Yeah, we may be able to make it better. We may have to impact a little bit, but
So they can get the 20-foot.
Or make a request to impact it.
absolutely.
I saw the heads nodding, but the consensus of the board is you want it to go to third-party review for the building, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was saying it was tight, and I think definitely need to.
So
So-
on the last couple of them, we also did site review on it, regulations. And a couple you said, no, we're happy with doing our own site review on it. And this one, you wanted to do some drainage, or you wanted to look at it compared to our regulations. On site review.
I'm
You
always
guys have
up,
gone back and forth on it a couple different ways in the past.
I'm always up for having an extra set of eyes look at it,
Okay.
so. Site review.
We're gonna look at the whole package.
I don't think we go back and forth on that. We make based on the specifics of the case, we make a decision.
Correct. Exactly.
Sounds better.
But it changes depending on what, some applications are simpler than others.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, and this one is,
Yeah, I,
you got a lot crammed into a tight space.
Yeah, this one's tight.
Is he, I'm assuming, like a 60 by 60 is very specific, so it's either it's a very specific, like Morton building or something that he's looking at purchasing or preset building, or it is very specific to the equipment he intends.
No, he doesn't need that exact size. That's like a logical size. They're normally 60 feet wide, and then, a 60-foot long is pretty standard. You can get them in, 20-foot segments, but the 60-foot wide is typically standard. But you may be able to put a 80 by 40 foot or something on. It's just a matter, and right now he's in a different location in Brentwood, and he's got to vacate. So he is looking for the building, and he's trying to get a good deal on the building, which right now getting steel is impossible. So it may end up being a little bit different size. You may be able to go with a little bit different size.
could talk to him about that, because that might make a difference on getting the fire lane and also the impact on the.
Well, he may just have to, we may have to go with the 80 by 40 or something of that nature just to make that work. And he's not opposed to it. It doesn't affect his ability to use the space.
That's kind of what I was wondering, is what's the impact for his business, especially being it seemed like it was two very specific sizes and being they were consistent.
Those just really, if you look, it is like a long, narrow piece of land that we have to work with. And so those work pretty well. And like I said, the 60 width is pretty standard for the metal building, so.
At this point, I would open hearing, comment, and questions. Take the microphone. Please.
Stephen Jeffrey, 128 France Road. Might call this a point of order. For my perennial concern for wetlands and wetland buffers. Our ordinance says 953, in any required wetland buffer, including by way of example, by way of limitation, no structures, impermeable surfaces, parking spaces, or construction-related activities, including dredging, filling, and regrading shall be permitted, except as noted in section 9.4 and 9.5.1. That doesn't include 9.6. 9.6 says, special permit for construction in a wetland buffer. A use not otherwise permitted in the be under keeping with intent that the ordinance is permitted in the base zoning district. A use not otherwise permitted doesn't include prohibited uses. Instead, it would have said so. And just the plain language of it, it's like a use similar to the ones that are permitted. When I looked at the application, what they're doing, it appears to me, is some excavation of the wetland buffer and some fill. Special use permit is also the same thing as a conditional use permit. And there's three categories of land use activities. There's permitted ones, there's prohibited ones, and middle ground of uses. You know, it's not possible to list all the kinds of permitted or individual permitted things in a wetlands buffer, and that's why it's sort of generalized in how it's described. In any case, conditional use permits address the middle ground of uses. They don't address prohibited uses. If you're going to do something prohibited, you need to go to the ZBA. I got when I was on a lot of these questions were raised with the LGC and the Hampshire Municipal Association. I'm going to leave you with a couple documents for your consideration. I'm going to keep bringing this up. Those of you who haven't heard me bring it up before.
That's it, so I guess.
Any other public comments? All right, hearing none at this time, nothing online, nothing coming through online. Make sure I'm not missing anything.
No, sir.
All right, thank you. At this time, I will close the public hearing. Then for that, Mr. Guyer, do you have anything you'd like to comment on or?
I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, or if the continuance order is in.
Any other comments and final comments from the board? None at that point. So motion to continue this application, Mr. Guyer, I'll allow this to go to the town engineer for drainage review and site review.
I make a motion, we continue 265 plus 12 RC 22 R.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Just a minute,
Oh.
you gotta continue.
Oh, sorry. Nope. I'm jumping the gun here, trying to
May 3rd would be the
continue.
first Tuesday.
May 3rd.
Yeah, if you try to do it in 2 weeks, in that work session, I don't think you'll have enough time to get stuff back. And if there is any issues that you have to reply to, it wouldn't happen. So
No, I agree.
May 3rd.
Yes, sir.
So continued to May 3rd. Got a motion, second. Motion by Ron and seconded by John. Is that correct? Motion by John, or sorry, Ron,
John.
and seconded by John. Ron and John.
John.
Ron and John. It all.
Big fun now, Barbara. May happen again.
Isn't that a surfing company?
It is. I get no review.
Roll call vote.
Suchi, aye.
Tessie, your eye.
Allard, aye.
Nap eye. I guess, Mr. Guy. Excuse me. Next item before the board is applicant 3-26-.58 and 59-RC-22-SR. Owner zone request by applicant Josh St. Hilaire or St. Hilaire Motorsports, proposing a 17,400 square foot commercial building, sales and service with a possible future 10,000 square foot storage building, and loading with associated parking and display area. This area is located on Cape Highway, map 223, lots 26.58 and Scott Cole is here from Beal Assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. And for the record, Scott Associates. I have with me Josh St. Hilaire from Hilaire Motorsports. Everybody's aware, Hilaire has a thriving business currently, 25 northern end of Rochester. Time used to be cooked carpet. Quickly growing up, stay in town, thankfully, and looking at this parcel tonight. Therefore, a site plan application. This is for lots 26.58 and 0.59, map 223. So everyone understands, these are two lots along Route 125 that are part of the Ridge at Green Hill subdivision. Recently,
It's gonna be right next to the town hall.
nope.
No, it's down the-
Actually, Ron, if you look at the signature drive.
Yeah.
You have the site plan we just got approved on the left, next to these two. So on the northern end. These are the last remaining commercial lots of the subdivision.
Okay.
So this would be deprived of the last two lots, as I said. The proposal would be to combine two lots to make one. They would have a sum area of 8.8 acres. Use is commercial office and retail, with service. For the combination of all the plans they tried to make for you. As you can see, overhead. Color is the ones that are on site. Dark green is it main. Light green are grass areas. Build. Orangish type color would be proposed gravel areas. So we have the two proposed buildings. The first one is the largest one on the northern side or on the left as you look at the plan. We will call this phase one. This is supposed to be, client would like to have this built in two phases. Phase one would be the main building that would house the office space, TL space, parts department, service bays, and of course a showroom. Second phase would be the building right or the south. This would be a 10,000 square foot warehouse or storage building, and it would have an actual semi-truck loading bay and load. Now, we do have specifics on the actual phase one build. Phase two is yet to be determined, so we'd just like to bring your attention to that. As with this use, the client would wish to have display areas. It was brought to previous chairman to actually label those on the plan. We have done that. The display areas would be in front of the building and mostly to the north and the large space between the driveway drainage functions. As with a recreational vehicle, part of their main business to display their vehicles. We have adequate parking proposal in front of the building, along the side of the building. That takes care of the amount of fees, sales and retail. have additional parking in the orange color, which we would have for gravel. Imagine with some type of business, they could have trucks, trailers, gravel parking for the. This will be via access off Route 125. Actually contacted Vanessa Associates. They are professional traffic engineers, did the major traffic study on section of Route 25 and Route 9 intersection, the Ridge Egg subdivision. Sure how many actually were here during the time. This actual driveway was left as an easement, and originally in the Ridge Egg Hill subdivision, it was actually a horseshoe in one of the driveways. Due to the cost of doing that, that subdivision was redesigned and now will be just a functional driveway. So most of the mathematics and details required for the DOT permit are actually done. We just need them to finalize that and then actually get the Hampshire DOT permit. So they are working on it. Drainage functions on the site. If you look on the left of the plan, there's a very large drainage feature, which is actually a little lighter than the rest of it. That's because that drainage feature is a large sand filter and accepted by AOT New Hampshire DES. That was in preparation for commercial things on these sites. The commercial site plan we just did to the south of this, that one had a wet pond. This one has a large sand pond. But what we have done for our drainage system is we have proposed catch basins, catch the rain runoff coming off and roof under drains, tied together to a bay. Bay captures anything, any sediment, gives it a chance to actually fall out into the sand filter. The sand filter is being built as part of the Ridge at Green Hill subdivision, not part of this application. So in terms, it will be an existing feature, not built by this client. That's just something else to know. For fire protection, we did meet early on with Chief Walker. We do have a minimum 22-foot aisle all the way around the phase 1 building. And in addition to the requirements, as you can imagine, a building this size, we have a proposed 30,000 gallon fire cistern as well. The rear thing. Not sure if you can see this area. It's a 30,000 gallon cistern, plenty of it. That has two functions. It supplies fire suppression for the phase 1 building and would also be a storage tank if needed when determined for the phase 1 building. We have been told by Chief Walker if there is proposed storage, anything above 12 feet may or may not, that building may need to be sprinkled. We are still acquiring information from a fire engineer to determine that for us. However, we have determined by putting the cistern in for phase 1, the quantity will be there. So we're just trying to figure out if the actual sprinkler system will be needed or not for that building.
For the primary building?
The phase 2 building.
Phase 2 building.
Yep, the cistern itself takes care of the phase 1 building. As required, we have provided a full lighting plan that was derived by Sharon Inc. Lighting engineers. Can't miss that. Page 4. There's a full-scale plan. It's the same professional engineers, lighting engineers that did the previous site plan. They're familiar with regulations as a medium light category. Do that. Now they basically, as I gave them the regulations, this is what's required. Do your thing. I myself, being a resident very close by, so I guess I'll put my abutter hat on, but the only thing I disagree with this is myself personally, not as my client. I don't like the light right at the entrance. I think it would be distracting driving by because I drive by almost every night. That's obviously up to the board because it's on private property. We've done other site plans. We try to keep it away from the highway. But that's my opinion. I'd like to ask the board theirs. Josh has provided some very nice building elevations. You can see here. During our design review, we did go over some aspects of the proposed building and what the board at the time would prefer to see. Josh has, with his architect, provided this type of building here, aesthetically pleasing. He's got some very nice wood timbers out front. There would be a covered machine display area. Go in and be protected by the elements underneath. I think it'd be being where the site is, it's actually going to be on a little higher elevation from the main roadway. So I think it'd be very aesthetically pleasing. Utilities would be private, as expected, be on private septic and well. The only other criteria which we did not supply, and Josh would actually like to speak to the board himself, be on the landscape requirements. There is certainly historic and other premises along Route 125 that do and do not have landscaping. Josh would like to speak with yourselves to that himself. Just a moment. Just to update quickly, we do have a letter from Nessa. She pointed out that said the previous application here this evening, detailed things. She did a good job by the regs and everything, and I was actually quite surprised the amount of projects I've done that you know not quite held to some of these requirements. You know, most of the data that's required is within the plan set as it is. This is a criteria that most of it needs to be on the title sheet. In my opinion, I like to keep a clean title sheet. We do put the town notes that are required on the title sheet, which is more than adequate. But to put all the notes on the title sheet tends to messy it up. If that's the board deems that appropriate, to keep it clean if you have a choice. Other than that, there were some homework issues, some stamps and some comments. I did do a response letter. I know enough, I've got yelled at enough times that I did not give you new materials to look at right before the meeting, so we will do that for the following meeting. Other than that, the only thing I would like to comment on, one of the comments was for engineering review. One of the requirements for these lots are, because it's tied into the AOT permit from a previous subdivision, no matter what we do, we're required to go to AOT. So even though the additions we have done are pretty small in nature, they lead to the sand filter, which AOT will thoroughly review and make sure that we have upheld what we thought would be proposed in the first go around. Other than that, it's normal practice and things that we've done in town. The cistern, we've done multiple cisterns. It's the same that we've provided before, other than it's an additional 10,000 gallons. So that's just up to the board, their decision making. Other than that, Josh, I'll hand it over to you on your plant landscaping thoughts.
How you doing, everybody? Josh saying, last meeting, other places, but at the first meeting, we discussed landscape. I know that was a part of the conversation then. I guess I haven't exactly been clear if there was a requirement per se, for shrubbery or trees or things like that. Our intention is to have mowed, manicured grass, maybe some nice stone in the front of the building, or not in front of the building, but the front of the property on the road frontage. We would prefer not to have to maintain shrubbery and trees and things like that. We want to keep it, the frontage, as unencumbered as possible to be able to see our vehicles and items to be displayed. And also the building. The building is a beautiful building, and we intended it to be visually pleasing. Other businesses in town that have been built recently were used as an example at the first meeting as to the landscape as far as flowers, shrubbery, trees. I myself went to those businesses, and I don't care to name them because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but if they did have shrubberies or flowers or trees, those are gone, and it's mowed grass at this point. So I would prefer just to get that out in the open now that our intent is to have just mowed grass, and, you know, possibly some, you know, landscape stone along the frontage. Really don't want the additional cost or construction cost or maintenance cost of any sort of fancy shrubbery or flowers or things like that. We're cycle and power sports business, and I think it's important to leave the frontage as clean cut as possible to be able to properly display our vehicles. And again, the aesthetics of the building is very nice, and that's really focus on. We couldn't find any real specifics on requirements of, again, shrubbery, trees, things like that. You know, it was brought up, but we didn't see any actual legal documents of that. So if it is not required for oak grass, potential aesthetically, that's pretty much it, really. Scott?
Look at the beginning, Paul, actually, it's in.
It's like 10-2 and 10-3
Go to 4:10.
legal
Talks
documents.
about, some healthy trees, not doing any site work where those trees could remain. You're gonna kill the tree, so there's no sense in keeping a tree if you're gonna kill it, you know, I 100% agree. But with some of that stuff along the change, some of it, you can pick out some trees and mark it, show how you have grass coming around it and few other trees and stuff to make it that aesthetically. I think what it says was aesthetically.
I mean, I'll lean on Scott a little bit, but I guess if you look at the plan, the darker green area that comes out to the road,
Plan on cutting all the trees all along the front of the building.
ideally, yeah.
Yeah,
that
if you
would
see,
be-
John, you can see entering the driveway on the right, see all those curved lines. That's all, there's a big cut in the other part, so we're gonna fill more towards the front.
Huge cut in the back.
Yes, we wanted to try and leave that a nice gradual grade, which would be, you know, a lot more aesthetically pleasing.
So it has that.
So that's gonna be all regraded. We didn't wanna leave that sharp face, because then you have more, you know, erosion issues, things growing it that you don't want. So we're trying to, that whole area up front, especially on the right side of the drive, all the way past the septic area, was to be cleared and then regraded. So it would be, again, it would be a nice green front hillside.
So it's gonna be sprinkled. Gonna have a system to keep it green.
Irrigation, that's a good question, actually. We haven't really discussed that.
Otherwise it's brown in the summer.
Can't use the system for that, that's only for firefighting purposes.
Right.
They don't want-
Need a separate well for that.
Just asking, are you aware of any other businesses in town with green, like,
No,
that have sprinkler systems in the
well,
ground,
most of them, I think, state do have
irrigation?
the 50-foot section of trees and bushes and so forth. Probably are not requiring irrigation, but if it's just grass in the,
And candidly,
get that western sun, southwestern.
they're not before us proposing a building, and we're not, I won't speak to what was done by the prior board or what is the current state. If there's a grievance, then that goes before the code enforcement officer. We're doing your design review for your building, and we have the regulations that we have to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the specific point was right here. A specific example was used, and that specific example by a member of the board was not correct, really. So, and I totally understand what you're saying, but it was used to me as an example, yet it didn't follow what was being portrayed as the example to me. It portrayed exactly what I would like to do, which was nice clean cut grass and, you know, a nice looking yard essentially. So that was the only reason I brought that up, not to be.
Look at the one just north of this one where the monument place is. He's actually got mostly grass, but he's got a few fruit trees along there. That's what he proposed as part of his stuff. So, planning board was happy with that, so I'm not sure the board's gonna be happy with that on this particular one. But it doesn't mean you gotta put arborvitae's all along the front where you can't see the building. It's just they want to make it visually attractive. It's not a screen, it's to keep it attractive.
Maybe some maples or something, not, you know, pines, but something. Tall trunk.
Yeah. Trees get bigger, especially maples, and eventually they become too big in front of a retail structure, you know, so that's my only concern.
Well, even dwarf fruit trees would be something that wouldn't grow 8 or 10 feet. We'd have to use some.
So I'll go by the monument place and
A
look.
couple of other ones in town. I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Because you gotta make a presentation to the board, and they gotta, like,
Mhm.
they had a lot of, they had like some bark mouth stuff with some low lying shrubs and, you know, some type of, like, I'm saying flowers, but it's not really flowers, what do you call them, things that grow every year.
Annual
Annuals
or
and
perennials.
stuff, And they had that, especially when you got the slope, you could have that sloping down. You could have, like, bark
I'm out of my
and stuff.
league. Perennials.
Those annuals, I know.
It's not like the cost of.
We just said you were.
Maple trees. I agree. Maple trees are very expensive. The odds are when you dig this all up, you plant them, the odds of them living is probably maybe 50%. So there's a point to where, you know, if you can keep a smaller type shrub thing down that would live, and keep that aesthetic, you know, so it's aesthetically pleasing to the eye and the whole bit. You know, like I said, it's not about putting trees in to hide the business. That's not what this is about.
No, and I understand. I do understand that. It's hard to differentiate different, one thinks is aesthetically pleasing and what some, like me personally, I think nice line mowed grass with nice landscapes, I believe is aesthetically pleasing, but one of you or two of you or three of you may not. So I guess it doesn't seem cut and dry to me. And if you guys have some direction on that follows the laws of the town, then
Well, most recent one was, you know, tactical, the new building on tactical two-way, what are they doing? Two-way tactical. They had a pretty good landscaping plan. So that would be a good example.
I haven't seen that, so I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, and that one got changed. They took all the stuff out of the parking because they probably ended up dying anyways because they're plowing, putting salt on the trees, yeah. They took the center ones all out, but they did keep the stuff along 120.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that big trees like maples get bigger, but where the building is higher, maybe you want to go with lower things that actually block the view from the highway, maybe go higher, then you can limit a little bit, and it'll still show the building when it grows out, you know. So, but that's your choice.
So the way the site plan regulation designates it under 410, under landscaping design and screening standards, it says because you talk about what are the differences of landscaping in Barrington. The existing landscape of Barrington is diverse, containing natural wooded environments, orchards, and other fields, as well as wetlands and streams. New development should be respectful and sensitive to the dominant landscape character of Barrington as a whole. So that's, when we look at it, we're like, okay, does it fall within the general guidelines of what Barrington as a whole is and align with, you know, what is the preferred rural or scenic road development pattern? And there's an example of that actually in the.
And can you name that? It was 410?
It's 410, and then it has 410.1, which goes through the
You stopped
purpose.
it, I can print the whole section out.
Okay,
It's in the Barrington site plan and review regulation.
thank you.
Goals to be helpful, not hinder.
No, and yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say when I guess I just, I understand at the last meeting, I know there's a lot of faces. It's hard to differentiate because a lot of it is opinion based. And, you know, I want to appease you guys, but also we want to be fiscally responsible and not do things that are not needed on an already extremely costly project. You know, that gets, it accelerates quickly.
At this point in time, I guess I would kind of like pull the board. If he did some low flying landscaping stuff, something that's not big and powerful, but kind of decorates that slope going up, is that what you guys are thinking? Or are you thinking more tree type stuff? I mean, I think we should give Josh direction on how we should possibly design it. I think that's what he's there looking for.
And I guess I would say even before that, I would really like to try to avoid trees specifically, if possible. You know, trees grow, get tall. I mean, if I have to do something, I guess I would say flower beds or something like that, that would be on the sloped side down toward the road. I mean, that would be my preference, but at the end of the day, I understand that I have to.
If you had low bushes like azalea or something, but they don't have to pack the whole area. And maybe even wildflower gardens, trees you have to tend, it will just come back every year naturally. Then you mow it all down in the fall, and it comes back and there's very little maintenance to it, much less than grass.
In the language says sustainable design, wildlife habitats, indigenous plant materials. So that to me is like different than grass. It's perhaps a little bit wilder look, maybe some mulch.
Patch. Yeah, some stoners.
Wildflower sounds good.
Yeah, you get the New Hampshire DOT has their wildflower mixture that's made for this area. Don't go online for something else.
That you plant just like grass and you mow it once a year and you let the flowers grow up for the summer.
Yeah, go on 101, they have patches on 101, come up every year. They really look nice.
Yeah, it gets what, maybe like a foot and a half high there?
Yep, that's all. Yeah,
Might
they're
be
not gonna
easier
block
to
anything.
In the fall, you mow it, it comes up in the spring, you don't have to touch it.
You probably win an award for the beautiful front.
If you're looking, if you want to see a specific example of that, if you drive into the entryway of TurboCam, a lot of the shrubbery coming in there is all stuff that's pretty easy to maintain. It stays relatively low. And if you head up around the pond, we've actually planted, it's all wildflowers. We don't mow in around that pond, and it's done to hold back the bank, retain it. And we have muskrat and ducks and all kinds of other wildlife, turtles that live in and around that little pond that's in there. So
Is this on the Route 125?
it is.
Location?
Yep. Yeah, if you pull in and drive up through there, if you want.
Drive by things a million times and you just don't pay attention to that detail unless you're thinking of it, you know, so I will.
That one's back.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd even gladly offer up setting up with I have an internal landscape person who does a lot of this and has kept it largely natural for us. That's been our focus, is to keep it a natural landscape. So
You work at Turbo?
I'm in charge of facilities and maintenance.
Okay, yeah,
He's the one that's giving you permission to go look at it.
Yeah.
perfect.
I mean, if you want, you can come over, I'll gladly, with the exception of the next couple of days, because I'm meeting, I'm in a training for a few days, but
Okay,
gladly take some time to walk you through and introduce you to our landscape person.
yeah, ideas are, I think, is it a sheet? Is it?
Melody.
Okay, I think I've actually had discussions with her. I'm in the snowmobile club as well, so I think I actually have.
Yes, I know the email.
Yes, yep. Which, happy to
Top.
talk about that at a different time as well. But, yeah, so I'd like to do that. So I'll reach out
Okay.
at some point.
All right, Scott, a couple of things.
Yes.
They said the lighting plan complies, but it really doesn't.
Okay.
Minimum here is 0.5 on your plan, and the minimum for the table is 0.6. So it's just a little bit off.
Okay.
And also you have the display area that is much higher intensity, which I completely understand. But there really isn't category for that, so I think you're gonna have to ask waiver for that section right there.
Underneath the canopy?
Yeah.
Yep, that was a actual late addition.
I think it's a good idea to display the area brighter, but it's, it's not covered under the table, so it probably needs a waiver request. I think it's a reasonable request, but it doesn't fit our rules and regulations right now.
What section?
In it.
You can give him a number section so we know what to write the waiver on.
Well, it's, okay,
It has that thing on the map.
yeah, he knows where it is. Table number 7. We have the high, medium, and low categories. The medium category, which you're in, the minimum is 0.6, and you're 0.5 here in your chart. So you're a little bit. But the display area, which is much, much higher, much brighter, which makes sense, it doesn't comply with the regulations. because, you know, we don't contemplate that. So
Mhm.
I think it makes sense. I think a waiver request would be reasonable, but I think it needs a waiver request.
Yeah, obviously the intent of that is also display and security purposes.
I understand why you do it that way, but
Those were actually, I was checking myself to make sure they were added in the legend. They are added.
they are added, but like I say, it doesn't comply with the regulations.
Yep.
Makes sense. I understand why you want it, but it doesn't comply, so.
No, I can certainly write that is, so I'm not doing it,
And the next one is just a suggestion.
that, can we discuss it?
I don't have a problem with it. Just like I said, waiver. Just a suggestion, the building there, you have a loading dock, which I understand. Sometimes you may want to take, you know, your stuff off the building, a side pick. So maybe an at-grade entrance on the building side there. Might be something you guys want to consider in the future.
On the phase 2?
Yeah, so if you had an at-grade right here, you could take a truck out, pick off the side of a truck and go right in the building. So as long as you have a loading dock, you can only pull from the back, you know what I mean? You can't pick from the side.
Assuming you have a drive-in door, you'll have a grade level.
Yeah, the apron, the paved apron in the rear would be so you can access it at normal grade, drive in and out.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That way,
Loading bays.
if the truck comes up, you want to pull off the side of the truck.
Yeah, no, there will be large garage bay. Or-
And that's your choice.
Didn't have that.
Suggesting that.
The last application, the- about the size of their second building, so get a for the fire chief. That's something to think about. The side of that.
We actually did discuss that with Rick. That's a good point. The way that it reads is he needs hose. Try to read it. He needs hose access within 150 feet at all points of the building. So I had to ask him myself, what that means is, say if the truck parks in the rear of that phase 2 and backs all the way to the edge of the pavement, he's limited to 150 feet of hose to go to the rest of the building. So this building here,
65 by 1.
yeah. So if a truck goes on one side and a truck goes on the other side, you need to be able to flat hoses, which we have verified we certainly can.
Okay.
So we've got plenty of hose.
Like a square building. 65 by 140.
I'm sorry.
Building?
No, you're absolutely correct. It's, we did update that. Vanessa actually sharply caught that. That was the size it used to be. It's 100 by 100.
Gotcha.
Which is actually, that's what's shown on the plan. The text just didn't get updated.
Okay, if we're correcting things, on sheet 1 and 2, on the location, in the upper left-hand corner, show lots 58 and 59. On map 3 and 4, what you were indicating is lot 57. Blackout area, which is your neighbor. So it's a minor point, but,
Sorry, what was that?
okay. On page 3 and 4,
3 and 4.
upper left-hand corner, location map. The area you have outlined is the
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that locus is low. I apologize.
minor point, just
Well, I'll update that.
There going to be signage other than what's in the rendering on the building?
That will be actually, that would verify on where it would like to go. Sounds like maybe now is a good time to introduce a little landscaping around. I think the best opportunity would be probably on the north side of the driveway as you come in. Nice kind of pedestal sign. Need to determine what we're gonna have for that. This is not a street, so it doesn't require street signs or anything. But I would assume you'd want a business sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll have to come back.
Be after this process, but if you 15 feet back, you can get to 96 feet.
96 square feet, like, so, and total out of any set. So example I have is a lot of dealerships, you guys may or may not have seen, motorcycles or cars, they'll have a business name, but then a lot of times the manufacturers will require a sign for their brand, so to speak, right?
It all has to be in that size, so,
All of it together has to be within.
yeah, that's the maximum
Okay.
size you can have, so you can have different portions. So, no, it's not regulated on content and what it says and how it's broke up, it's regulated on size.
Mhm.
Can't regulate content because, it's made it very clear that you can't even read what it says to determine whether or not it's a legal sign or not.
But again, total signage, even if they're different sign pieces, cannot exceed 96 square feet. Okay. All right.
Have building signs that you can have separately that are attached to the building that has a different criteria. So have your sign out by your road and then you can put other signs up on the building stuff too. And that's based on the amount of square footage you got on your building to how big the sign can be.
And
Sign regulations.
in Barrington, I'm sure I can meet with you to get more document regarding stuff, but you can't have lighted signs, right? And you can't have LED signboard.
Correct. You can't have the, okay, they can create the chasing stuff.
Yeah.
They can be internally lit, they can be externally lit. There's multiple ways of doing it.
Yep.
You just can't have it so that it's changeable.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want the stuff with plaster where they got the rolling thing going around turning here.
Mhm.
So that's the reason why they don't want that.
Okay.
And the signs are Article 20 in our permit. Or zoning. Thank you.
Going back to Scott's point on light spillover onto the 25.
Yep.
I think I read somewhere the DOT is requiring you to clear better sight lines to take some of the existing foliage down around your entrance, which would actually
Yep, we're gonna,
lessen the amount of greenery that might screen some of that light.
right.
Possible maybe 2 lower lights, so you're only lighting the pavement from the back, or are you gonna ask for a waiver on that one? Because we have the Barrington going down, bright light.
So, you know, don't care. So,
Yeah.
you know, look,
So
I like Barrington being done.
I agree. Let's like that part.
Yes. Yeah, the one in Rochester, just as you're going over the Barrington line,
There's another
guys coming at you.
spaceship.
So I did have a question of your turn-in lanes pulling into the facility. Just because I think when I think of a motorsports business, I think of a vehicle with a trailer on the back that then is hauling something, which often requires a pretty significant slowdown in making sure there's enough room to get off of the roadway. So that one, somebody doesn't get rear-ended, and two, you protect the person pulling into your business. As well as making sure that they have the space coming in to make that swing and get around there. And it looks like you've got a 12-foot travel lane for each side, a 24-foot wide with 12 feet kind of divided out through the middle. So I guess my big concern is looking at the radii and the angles coming in there. Do you have enough room to get somebody kind of off the road? Because that stretch is solidly 55 through there. And there have been several accidents, right? And really more like 70 is probably what you see.
So we've hired a traffic engineer that's going to be doing a study on our existing business now.
Mhm.
And they spend a few days recording our traffic and many different points of interest. And that is presented, correct me if I'm wrong, to DOT at that time for a driveway permit, which at that time they would give us that requirement. We expect to have an acceleration and deceleration lane. I don't know what you put on the thing. That was,
If it's like 2A tacticals, they're gonna want you to widen the shoulder on, the west side, because they want people that make that left turn. And if you stop in traffic, other people could drive around. So that's part of what's holding 2A tactical up from getting their final approval. They haven't got their DOT approval yet. So they look at traffic in both directions going into part of their approval.
Now, on sheet 2, you show a further up is second turn. Wondering what it would look like coming off 125. This looks kind of narrow to me. Your entrance, oh, it's 24 foot.
Yeah, I think I did look at that, and, if they hug this, the new striping, which is part of the improvements they will be making shortly, it doesn't
Yeah.
look like that right now.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there was adequate room, but I agree in the same thing that Andy was saying. I think going northbound with a rather long trailer, it would be a little tight.
Yep.
Um,
How often do you get trailers, Josh?
yeah, I will, oops, sorry.
Full-size tractor trailers, I mean, it varies, of course, but it could be 5 a week. It could be 1 a month. You know, so it really does vary that much, but
Sure.
it is a factor. It's a factor in our business for sure.
Rather than have to rethink it later.
My,
DOT is saying.
and my concern is you had a truck with a toy hauler on the back and they're making that turn. And we all know that the lights on those can be fickle at best, all enough trailers where
Yeah.
the lights work when you hook them up, and I've gotten places and they're not working when I get there, so I'm pulling apart entirely.
grounding
Right, I'm like, usually I'm repairing a ground.
Yeah, that, for the entrance, I think, again, under the recommendation from the Hampshire DOT requirements, but I think, I will offer at least a bigger radii coming in, which would be northbound to like a 50-foot radius. I think that's what we have on the previous driveway, so that should help maneuver it in.
There is some upgrades that are coming to that as part of the subdivision. It's not shown on this at this time, correct?
Well, this striping is the proposed,
That's the proposed stuff?
Yes. because we know it's being built, it's approved, so we, like an existing condition.
So am I missing your dumpster pad? I've been looking through and my eyes aren't that good. The dumpster pad.
Well, I had it, and I think I have it in the western corner as well, so the truck could easily come and back up. So I get, and sort of put that back on.
Great. And one more question. So at the front, which is beautiful.
Thank you.
I see what. Is there any kind of like little pad in there, like a speed bump? I don't know the right name of, probably you guys know the name of it. You know, to keep the, like if a car comes up, let's say by mistake, you drive like I do instead of reverse, something to keep it from going in.
Oh, you mean,
Oh,
so we want
What do you
to
call
building?
that?
Yeah, so between like the post, you mean?
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, you'll have.
Traffic stops.
Yeah, I know it's not in the architectural example, but there will be concrete padding under that, and I would imagine we would have like curbing along.
Yeah.
Any parking, yeah, because that's 100% a good idea.
Plus your windows are pretty big, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right size for a car.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's, glad you mentioned. Isn't something I thought of, would have been something that came up at some. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, or crushed a $20 machine or whatever.
This guy has, yeah, this guy's your machine, yeah. that's-
But yeah, I mean, if you could picture a concrete pad underneath the awning and then curbing stone.
That's gonna be raised up, you think? Is that what?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
That makes sense.
Cement plant.
Like a sidewalk.
Like a sidewalk, a great example. Yep.
Yeah,
Have
good
some
choice.
planters there. Hey, you've got a women's touch here. More flowers.
Short flowers, so
I guess I have to work on my green thumb a little bit.
Gotta hire a landscaper now.
Good luck.
And could, your handicap, I know I saw the handicap in here, but I haven't seen it labeled on your plan. Again,
That was labeled.
I like, so
Yeah, right here.
area.
does it show, I mean, like,
Yeah, show it on.
Yeah, sheet 3's got it.
does it,
so the two spaces inside that,
Yeah, two van accessible.
So the Donna's point, there's a mismatch between the rendering and the drawing. So the drawing and the rendering are different, so there is a mismatch between the two.
In the handicap?
Yeah. You got 2 hatches there and you got 1 hatch in the back.
Yeah, they're probably,
Looks like that center one, keep it open for a walkway, not for the back.
Yeah, because there is right near the front door.
yeah, we try to usually double up in that regard, so it's a walkway and accessible.
Yeah, but the drawing only shows 1 hatch point. John is what I'm saying. See, now Scott, you send a,
I think it should actually be 1 and 2 on the red.
On each side.
whatever, I mean, as long as it complies. You said there's a display area. Is that hatched area the display area? Is that what is that hatched area right there?
Septic, right?
That septic.
Yeah, there should be septic, the
Septic, okay,
area,
okay.
which is yet to be,
But the adjacent area next to that is a pretty nice flat, 208 to 210. Can you display there too? Is that what you were thinking about displaying when we question about?
yes, yeah, and see.
And that display has to be that 50-foot back line, because you can't
Right.
have any displays in that.
In the buffer.
Behind the green belt.
Where that board that he showed, it's actually that dotted line. It's gonna-
So it looks like you have 25 feet in depth there, right?
Because that's my point. Is that the display area? Is that,
Behind stuff.
my question, is that the display area?
No, that's the.
Where is the display area? I still don't see it.
The labeled on sheet 2.
Right there, okay.
So, between this dotted line and that solid line. is the display area.
Okay.
That's the septic.
And then
I got it.
be a large one on the left side of the drive. 2.
Hate to keep it hidden in the lights. Is it gonna be lighted? Display area gonna be lit?
No, I
Well, based on, I mean, even the lighting plan, you're gonna get
oh,
a little bit out there.
The display area to the left of the driveway probably won't have a hole. Front of it, relatively.
The items. Anyone wants to talk about?
If you have somebody, I come in, I see something that you're selling, I really want it. Can you do test drive, to let them test it out? Every area for-
Allow test drives to drivers if it. So just like you would test drive a car at a car dealership, they can go take it for a ride down the road. Off-road vehicles, we generally allow them to use our parking areas right now, or not parking areas, but our parking lot. At this point, we don't have a designated test drive area per se. It's less common for people to test off-road vehicles, especially new vehicles, because we don't generally allow test drives with those vehicles. It's more on-road specific, and they do go on the main roads for that.
So no going through the woods and doing burnouts up on Signature.
Stay away from the town hall, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't see that.
got enough space to test if we need to.
Are there any other items?
What was the height of the building in the rear? The parking lot to the top?
Of the phase 1 building,
Yeah,
exterior
I was
height,
just wondering what the old houses was down.
there's a green
The
belt,
forest should kind of screen,
I don't know how the,
not sure of the
a
size.
100-foot green belt buffer, and it'll stay what's there now.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll see our facility.
You're about 20 feet lower, right?
John, you can see the
Yeah,
topo lines. It's pretty steep.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
It's down for the shop there.
I'm just wondering,
I believe it's roughly 35 feet.
mostly a pine forest, right?
so the
100,
And it was forested around there too, so
Yeah.
it should be pretty.
Right.
phase 1 building, per reference of the elevation plans that were supplied, has a total height of 27 foot 4 inches.
Okay.
And the phase 2 could be higher than that, but that's yet to be determined at this point. It won't be higher than the maximum allowed. But that is, you can see there's a pretty substantial
There is.
cut there, so.
I don't think the building
Just I know,
would sit below the. site
It'll be
line.
below the subdivision.
Yeah. So
as they're widening, the way for September Drive with the lot 57, I noticed they're taking out a little piece there,
They have, yeah. That'd be a little,
up there.
little-
Well, part of that on the left was that site approval that got approved a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
That's where those trees are.
7, yeah. I'm talking on the back on September Drive, some sort of signature. Not here, this is on 57, they've taken a lot of trees.
Want to accept your application as complete?
Complete. Yep.
So any other last comments? Trying to make sure we get all that out of the way here. So looking to vote to accept the application is complete.
Make a motion to accept it as complete. Case file 223-6.58 and 59-R22-SR.
So motioned by John Driscoll, seconded by Donna Masucci. Nap aye.
Howard, aye.
Tiffany aye.
Suchi, aye.
Yellow.
So we've accepted it as complete. Heard a proposal from everyone. Any other comments from the board or from the applicant?
Good.
Thank you.
I'll open public comment. Public comment. Okay. Second. Hearing no public comment, I'll close public comment.
Question on drainage review, the third-party review. This one is similar to the one next door, where this has already been approved by site specific, but they gotta re-approve back to make sure that it meets the compliance. And I think the board decided that it wasn't necessary to go for third-party review.
Well- The sand filter piece is an addition above and beyond the other the originally approved drainage, if I remember that correctly.
It was part of the AOT permit for the large subdivision.
And it has to be re-reviewed by AOT at this point in time.
Yes, because technically we're making an amendment to it. And it was part of their requirement for the subdivision that any of these commercial lots, they want to see it again anyway, so we don't have a choice.
So I guess the point is it's really getting a third-party
Yeah.
review because they're going back.
AOT.
To the drain. Feel that alteration of drain is sufficient due to determine that drain.
It's a lot of impervious surface.
Should use the same criteria used for the last application.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I just brought up what you guys have done in the past because I think it's important for a board to remain consistent.
Yep.
At this point in time, you do have a lot of new board members and the board could change their mind and decide to do something different. But if you decide to do something different, you need to really be consistent going forward. So that's why I'm bringing it up, so you guys can decide how you want to do it, because it's your board and you are the ones that vote, not me.
And drainage wise, everything looks like it runs northwest and primarily northwest.
As does the existing grades.
Yep. Commentary, thoughts?
I guess I'm okay with it. Gee.
I mean, it's the existing grade already ran that way anyway. And
Yeah.
this is consistent with the way the grade.
You're just adding the 4-bay, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're basically providing the 4-bay
To what?
to take any kind of
It's already,
an insurity for no sediment reaches the
Yeah.
sand.
that's different. Yeah. Okay. AOT sounds good.
I think the board is
So
okay with
to-
that.
So go to the one that you just had before this. On May. Like, that's something that. Each application is different and has different requirements. So I guess we'll have to find you. Even if CMA is not reviewing it, to look at it. like you do it.
Consistency? I don't know.
But
I'm looking-
that's, well, see, that's why I said before, it's kind
Yeah.
of gone back and forth
Yeah.
depending on how complicated it is. And as Ron's comment is, each application is different. It's got a different complexity to it. So some you're gonna be more comfortable with than others. I mean, this is still a pretty large setup in the whole bit. I think that a lot of the lighting and the parking calculations and all that stuff is pretty much laid out. You guys have seen it. But if there's something that you feel might be missed, I know it's gonna come back is the landscaping in the parking area, but you guys tend to waive that when it comes out because you feel that it's not necessary. The tree's gonna die anyways. And that might be something you ought to look at in the regulations. 'Cause why is it in there if you keep letting it go? I mean, it's just part of the discussion. I'm not trying to talk you guys into anything. I'm just letting you know what the history has been, you know?
We're new.
Yeah.
Blame us. Three of us.
I have a general thought of having CMA,
Guys cheering, coaching,
well, and I,
experience.
and to some degree, my take on it is, you know, the loss of having Jeff, who used to love spending 30 hours of his week going through plan notes where, I think probably everybody else has other items that they're working on as well. Having CMA look at it gives us that extra set of eyes on it, and I would advocate that we have CMA review it. And so we have John, Vanessa, all of us, and CMA, which at that point, I'm pretty comfortable we've taken a belt and suspenders approach to doing our due diligence.
Okay, consensus on that?
Yeah, sounds good.
So you want to send the site review?
Yes.
Site review for CMA, yep.
DOT much faster. No. Added fishing
Don't
game.
worry, DOT will be waiting a year from now.
When the court added fishing game, had to look at it, they said, you guys.
It has not gotten faster. You're correct. DOT.
Isn't there 2 turtles or something found? Oh, no, that was another one I looked at on the other side. The other side of that wetlands up on Old Green Hill Road there.
Yeah, we still have the notations because they're in the vicinity, so it's on the cover sheet.
No square curves.
So I will, do you want me to directly send those plans or is it through the planning department? 'Cause I've already made some updates per Vanessa's comments, so that will kind of nullify some of their comments, not being redundant.
I'm assuming that we would go through you, Vanessa, and you would direct it, or am I assuming incorrectly?
In the past, we've had it sent directly and go through Vanessa, but I think Vanessa is new in this department and we've got a new board. And if she feels that she would like to have everything come to her and send out, I think that's something that you guys need to work out with her, you know. It's good to have things tracked a lot of times by having to go through someone instead of someone sending something direct and it gets a whole list and someone misses that it went out.
Should go to Vanessa.
Yeah.
Should go to Vanessa,
There's
yeah.
a new sheriff in town.
Right.
So we're all on the same page. We know what's going on.
Exactly.
If you forward it to Vanessa and then Vanessa will forward it to CMA, 'cause, I know when they get the draft stuff, they want to come back with a quote before you sign off.
So what I can do instead of a full submittal, because we know the changes now, I can give a full set for your record and a full set for the review. We'll get their comments and then I'll do a whole nother submit. That makes sense?
Yeah, because that way you can address all the changes.
Exactly.
Because whatever they pick up on, they're gonna change it.
Submitting like what you've submitted today.
They'll want to see, well, actually, they're not doing the drainage, from what I understand, so they don't need the drainage analysis. So it'll just be
Site,
a response to Vanessa's comments and then a new plan set.
Carol, do you agree with what we have put forth so far?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think you've covered everything quite thoroughly.
Okay.
so next month. You'll have your first meeting there.
I'm just saying,
May 3rd, is this May 3rd as well? Is that what we're saying?
I believe so, that'll give us time to kind of hound Ness and Associates on the aspect and where they're at. Back with.
motion, Mr. Chair?
I would, but I don't think I formally closed public comments, so.
Oh,
I want to make sure that I close the public hearing at this point in time. That way it's recorded appropriately. Because I don't want to have to redo any of that. So I will accept a motion at this time. If somebody would.
Make a motion that we continue application 223-26, 58 and 59-RC-22-SR to May 3rd.
Period, 26.58.
Did I miss it?
Just to correct it for the,
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I did. Continued to May 3rd. Call vote.
Capello, aye.
Yeah.
Jesse, you're right?
Allard, aye?
Nap aye.
Great, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Like the building, glad you're staying in Barrington.
Yes,
Trying. Trying to.
a lot of machines.
Next item on the docket are private roads. So looking for a review for a building permit on 507 McDaniel Shore Drive, a class 6 private road for Baird Mosher, map 124, lot 10.
Thank you for the opportunity tonight. As you said, I'm requesting a waiver for two of the provisions on the town's class 6 and building policy. And it helped me that when I was putting this waiver request together to read the purpose of this policy. And it says, if I might read that to you, the purpose of this limitation on building on class 6 highways is to provide against such scattered or premature subdivision as would necessitate the excessive expenditure of public funds. And I would hope to convince you that, well, there's going to be no subdivision going on, first of all, and this, what I'm proposing to do would in no way encumber any expenditure of public funds. Little background on the project. I bought this property, 100 by 80 foot pond, back in 1995. It served me and several tenants as a single family residence up until last year when I applied for and was granted a demolition permit to take down the 30 by 30 one-story building that was there and replace it with with replace it with using the same foundation, the same footprint, the same well, the same septic system, and there'll be no impact on it. Parking along my lot would stay the same. I'm not asking for a driveway. I couldn't put it in. The lot goes down at about a 45-degree angle, so it would in no way impinge upon the road. I'm requesting a waiver on two of those provisions. It's the road improvements. The only option available to me there would be to come up with 10% of my building costs. That would amount to about $23,000. And there would be really no, I don't see any public gain in that, but a huge imposition on one individual, whole mile-and-a-half road. And I'm also requesting a waiver on the road maintenance provision, which would require me to set up a road maintenance program. Well, it turns out there's already one on there, and it has been functioning at least since 1995. When I bought my property. It consists of it's an informal organization of the property owners on the road, and we take care of both summer and winter maintenance. We have the road is graded once a year by Bell and Flynn. We have several work details where we go out, we clean the gutters, we get the culverts running again if they're, and then there's maintenance that takes place periodic potholes. We have several tired gentlemen with tractors who love to get out there and do it, and they do a really great job. In the wintertime, we have Greg Elliott, who's at the beginning of the road, does the sanding. He has sand, he has a big pile of sand there already. And so if the road gets slippery, he can call call him and he'll get out and sand it. So it really keep working now already. There's already this informal process that's to maintain the winter and summer. I know of no instances where there hasn't been impassable for emergency vehicles or anything. I do know of at least one instance where they were able to get down, and this was during the winter because the house next to mine caught fire. The people across the road saw the fire, called the fire department, and it was a bad winter day, but they were able to get down there and put out the fire. So we all understand about the necessity to keep the road passable, and we're all working to do that. If you granting me a waiver would in no way change the character of the area. It wouldn't affect the public health or anything like that. It certainly wouldn't go against the purposes because it's not a subdivision and it shouldn't have any expenditure of town money or anything like that. As far as giving me a waiver, I think can't be justice because it would be a big loss to me. $3,000 is about what the cost of the windows for that house is going to be. But as I said, the road is already being maintained, so I don't see what huge expenditure of one individual is going to do to improve this. And certainly granting me a waiver will in no way diminish the value of other people's property. Hopefully, build a newer home, it'll actually increase property values, if anything. And as I stressed before, imposition of these provisions would be a real hardship on one individual. And as a collective, we've been doing a really good job of to answer any questions anybody had.
Comments from road agent. A fair number of trees along. Can your group get together and at least take care of that part?
Well, as a matter of fact, we just did. I noticed 2 trees that were lines. I didn't want to mess with them. I'm a little afraid about, and so I talked to the road agent. He called Eversource, and they were out there and took care of it. So we're all year round. Well, in the wintertime, there's about 50% of the homes are occupied. So there's enough traffic there and everything to keep an eye on things like. So we try to be as proactive, cleaning out some of the gutters which had filled up the other day. Just the last rainstorm, we had to come out over the road and said we've got people with tractors and these guys love to get out there, and we have a pile of fill that's available for them to fill up the potholes and stuff. And I think we're doing a good job. I don't want to criticize the town, certainly not the DPW here. I drove down, I have a friend that lives down the end of Ross Road, which is a town maintained dirt road. And I had just come from Mendham's. Ross Road was worse than Mendham's. Our road was a lot better. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not criticizing the DPW here. But dirt roads get muddy and nasty. And there's a window of time where, it's, you do the best you can. The town does and we do. And I hope that you would see fit to grant me this waiver. It really, as I said, I hope what I'm proposing to do will add value to the area, not detract. I'm not one of these guys that's, knocking down a tiny house and building a mansion, to try to replace it with a single family home to be my retirement home.
So the house has been used year round?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Right along.
Since 1995 when I bought it. Yep.
And I guess it's a question for Connor. Has this been reviewed by the select board? Because I believe the initial request was going to go before the select board before coming No,
The process puts it for review and comment by department heads, then the
planning board.
and then for review by the select board.
Okay, I thought when we started setting this up, there was an initial, like, come before the select board just to make sure that there was general support, and then it went through that process, and then it came back around.
So what you're talking about is in updating the policy, the select board wanted to make it clear in the application requirements that the application didn't need a survey, foundation, site plan, didn't need any variances or an approved septic plan. And the bit of that was if an applicant was uncertain if the select board was going to be willing to authorize the use of the they weren't going to require and all process, which starts with department heads, goes to planning. And obviously the role of the department heads and the planning board is to advise the select board informed decision based on their policy.
And in this case, sir, you're not changing the quantity of bedrooms?
No, sir. The only thing I'm doing that kicks me into category 3 is I'm increasing the volume.
Yep.
Because I'm adding a story to that. And there's nobody, pardon me?
Same foot.
Yes, sir. I actually did have to get a waiver for the overhang because it turns out the overhang on my new roof, it hit the setback by about 2 feet. And so I was granted a waiver for that. But the foot, the foundation is exactly the same. And there's nobody behind me. There's no building behind me, which, adding another story would somehow block their view or anything like that. There's no abutters back behind me. So very, very simple project. Like I said, I'm not putting a driveway in or anything.
I can add a little bit of information which might help you guys. The road is actually a one-way loop that goes around, and Mr. Mosher is on that one-way section. So even though most of the time when you want that 16-foot travel way and the 2-foot shoulder that's laid out in the selectmen's policy is because if you have trucks going in and out with tankers and stuff trying to bring water to the fire, they can get by each other. But where it's a one-way road, you could actually have one coming in and one going out the other way. So the necessity of having that wider road thing isn't quite as necessary as it would be if there's only one road in it. And that's, I think, one of the bigger things that would help support the idea of the waiver. So because of what this is and where he's asking for a waiver, I think this is where the planning board needs to weigh in. Do you support the idea of a waiver, or do you think that he should do the stuff that the road agent recommended about taking the trees out and that kind of stuff? So that's where this is at, because your recommendation is to the select board. So how do you feel about the idea of the waiver? Is really, this application is a little different than your normal application because he's asking for a waiver. You understand where I'm coming?
Yeah, and I don't know how many folks have actually driven down there. To make that much, you couldn't make that much wider if you wanted to. I mean, not without.
That's the reason why it's one way already.
Yeah, an absurd amount of work.
But you can upgrade it by taking down trees, doing different things as the road agent suggested.
I drove down today. There's some pinch points that are caused by trees, no question about it. That could be handled. And a reminder too, I know this is a financial burden, but the original requirement was for you to upgrade the whole road to 16 feet.
Yeah, I know.
So this is, the lesser of the evils. This is a financial, alternative to not burden you as much. So the intent of this regulation is to require you to upgrade the whole road up 16 feet out would be unreasonable for sure. The 10% surcharge is an alternative to that to make it more viable. So
it's to drive continuous improvement in these class 6 and private roads.
Yeah, and
without
that's a long road, and there's, 20 grand would go like that on that road.
I wonder too, I don't own any of the road, not even that 100-foot section in front of my home. I have a right of way in my deed, which allows me to travel on that road, which is owned by a consortium of people, I think, the Haleys and a bunch of, I don't know.
And that was the problem with original policy of making someone do those 16 feet the whole way, because you may not have right of ways, you may not be physically able to get it done.
Right.
So the reason that we put in a alternative to that is because the original requirement could be very, very burdensome and make it very difficult to pass. This is an alternative where everyone can pass as long as they want to pay the money. So, it is a chunk of dough, but it is the more reasonable alternative than following the original requirements. So this was put in as a compromise.
I understand, but where does my 23,000, I pay, everybody pays about $400 a year, which takes care of the routine, the grading by Bell and Flynn, and they may actually do it twice a year now. And we're always trying to improve the road. We do take out some trees, but then people argue, well, we take out so many trees and then people go faster. And and we're trying to maintain the character of that area. People walk their dogs, the kids play on the road. People ride bicycles and stuff. It's a dirt road. And when you make it too wide and people go too fast, and then you probably saw a lot of the signs that we put up to try and slow people down.
I didn't get a sense it was be very easy to drive very fast on that road. But my point is, to me, the appropriate waiver request would be, instead of the whole 23,000, here's my recommendation specifically. My recommendation is 10 or 15 or something else, but here's my recommendation. I think coming in and saying, my waiver is for the whole, I want to go to nothing. I have trouble with that. I think that's not a reasonable. If the requirement is do the whole road, no, do this 10%, but I don't want to do that. Then what is your alternative? What is your plan? Nothing? You're going to do no improvements at all. That's what you're asking for.
The pinch points that you saw are some of the trees. Could you take those trees out for $2,000, for example? Could that be your offer?
So
yes.
So what
I don't
thinking,
my question too is, I don't have the right to do that. It's somebody else's property.
Your road association does, sir. Your road association is.
As I said, it's an informal organization. It's not incorporated. It's just a group of people, the homeowners who take it upon themselves to make sure that the road is passable and safe. And I think we're doing a darn good job. I don't see how I could, 10% or whatever. Where would I put it?
So,
well, that's not for us to tell you. I mean, come up with a plan.
So one of the suggestions that we have utilized with this is that folks look at what the department heads have proposed for suggestions. Primarily in this case, it looks like Mark Morrow is the one who made the most suggestions or proposed plans. So
I haven't seen those yet, and I'm sure myself and the other people that are involved with the road would be happy to look at those and see.
So what I would suggest in that case is to take the suggestions that the road agent has made, have somebody give you a price to maybe have some of that work done, and then bring that proposal to the select board as saying, hey, here's what.
If I have to do that, I won't be able to build this year. And I've already put it off the build last year because of COVID, and 2 builders pulled out on me. The thing is torn down now. There's nothing there but the foundation, and it's capped. It's ready to build. I'm on the builder's schedule for the end of this month. If I get knocked off that schedule, I don't get to build this year. Things are that tight. And at this point, I'm 74 years old, and it doesn't serve any purpose to squeeze blood out of me to do something. I mean, we'd be happy to look at what you suggest. And if we can do that, but I don't, like I said, I don't have that authority. I can't go and tell the Haleys, we're going to cut down your trees. I can't, I don't have that authority.
You have a right to maintain your right of way that goes down through there. That's a given right to you. So,
and we do that.
So because of that, cutting those trees to maintain the right of way so those trees don't fall in it, you have the authority to do that because of your legally existing right of way. I've had right of way through other people's properties, and I've had people that had right of ways through my property.
Mhm.
You have a right to maintain your access.
Okay, and I would maintain that we do that. We trim the vegetation so that the visibility at the corners and stuff is good, so there's no accidents. We try and we repair culverts. We clean out the gutters. We take down trees that, my 80-plus-year-old neighbor was out there last year with his chainsaw, cutting down trees that hadn't fallen yet, but we're in danger of doing that. So we do. We're not sitting around waiting for something to happen either. We're trying our best to make sure that the road stays passable. And
Is that something you're willing to do? I guess that was the point Andy was trying to make. If that's something you're willing to do and this board concurs with, if you do that, then they could make that as a recommendation to the select board. And then you would put together what you're gonna do for the select board meeting, is it next week?
April
So-
11th, next select board meeting.
So here's kind of what I'm saying on this is, I agree. I don't think you're creating a significant additional impact on the road. But part of the process is to continue upgrading the road through that. And the reason why I say, if you went and got a quote from somebody that said, hey, to move these boulders, to take this down these dozen trees would be my $23,000, but hey, me and my neighbors are gonna take care of it and we'll do it, and we'll take care of these items that you have specified out before the planning board, because believe me, I'm a firm believer in sweat equity. I've done a whole lot of it in my life already. So that becomes a reason, in my world, a reasonable and acceptable path forward.
I think I would certainly feel comfortable doing that, asking my neighbors and friends to help and to do that, yeah. And hopefully with the knowledge that this will help, keep the road passable for everybody. Then, yeah, I would certainly have no problem with that, yeah, because we do a lot of it ourselves already. Wherever it's safe to cut down trees, we've done that. As I said, cutting back the brush. So
And shouldn't we have that's what I wanted to say is, you gentlemen can do that, get a price on it beforehand, bring it to the selectmen, but also have a time frame on it too, because we make sure it's done.
It has to be done
Yeah.
before I can issue a CO, but how the regulations written.
That was,
It's the perfect time of year right now, there's no snow.
well, and that's why my suggestion was, say, if somebody came in and said, hey, this is how much work we can do for $23,000, and you're like, okay, well, we can do that ourselves, or do most of it ourselves. That's a reasonable path forward in my mind,
Right,
to say I'm not, because the goal is to improve a class 6 in a private road. And there are folks like Mr. Allard here who may be like, yeah, I'm willing to pay 10% and move forward and play, and you might not be in the same boat.
People have already done that.
Yep.
See, I struggle with the fact that this process started.
Before.
And I know that the policy was you have to upgrade the whole road, but the fact of the matter was they weren't doing that. Waivers were being granted for the class 6 roads.
But that's why it came before.
Exactly.
board is
But when
because it
he
was just
started, the new policy wasn't in effect. So he did a demo, he did the ZBA, all with the thought process, I'm sure, that the waiver is going to be granted, because they always were by the board.
Yep.
The select.
But the Board of Selectmen changes every year, and that's not a guarantee, which is what I can tell you from being on the select
But the
board.
board didn't change while his process was going on, but the
It is
select
still
board
going
didn't
on.
change until March.
Right, but his permit is before us now, which means he started the process, and there are multiple other applicants.
I know there
started
are.
the Process
And there's already somebody who paid the 10%.
on that.
There's somebody who's already going through the process and paid the 10%. It's
So,
already been done.
so
First.
that's why I say my suggestion is put together a meaningful list of what you think you could actually accomplish. And my suggestion would be follow what the road agent has recommended, to go before the select board, requesting your waiver before the select board, because the select board has to grant your building permit.
Right.
So
I know it's a new regulation, but you can't put a new regulation and then right out the gate, not follow it. I mean, and I think your request is nothing. And the requirement is 10%, and you're suggesting nothing. And that, I think, is not a reasonable position for you to take. You got to propose something. You're asking me for this, I propose this. This is what I propose. And I think nothing is not, proposal is gonna fly.
What I'm proposing is to rely upon the established maintenance procedures that we have.
You're gonna
And
improve the road. What are you gonna do to improve the road?
we do improve the road. Bell and Flynn we have them bring in extra fill every year. We're trying to get them to crown the road, and we're trying to develop gutters on each side so that the water doesn't come across the road. We are, honest to God, we are working on this year to year. We are trying to make improvements. You know, we don't like driving down this, beat up old road any more than anybody else does. And as I said, we've got some great neighbors who really get out there. They fill the potholes, and we have taken down trees in the past, and we can certainly do that. I'm sure nobody would be adverse to looking at what has been suggested and see what we can do. But you were correct. These last version of this policy came out in February of this year. As you said, I started this process last year. I had the house down by September of last year, ready to build, and then COVID hit, and we weren't able to build that.
And last year, the requirements of 16 feet, and last year, the requirement was 16 feet the whole length, and either yes or no. And yes was not guaranteed. So you were in a situation before where you might have been required to do the whole 16 feet all the way. Now you have an alternative, a less expensive alternative, which is a 10% surcharge to improve the road. So this is the less burdensome option than was in the books before.
I can see that.
But I still maintain it's an unfair burden on one person who basically is not affecting 100 feet of the road. And I am now somehow going to be required to maintain or to, bring the whole road up to spec. So trying, the road association really does work to do this. As I said, we're trying to keep the road passable, the gutters cleared out, and water off the road. We're doing the best. We're doing a good job. I think the road continues to get better, and I'll match it against Ross Road any day, or at least on mud season.
So I absolutely appreciate that point in everything that you're saying. The objective of the policy, as we've stated, sir, is designed around improving the road. And my recommendation to you would be to look at the information provided and with regard to the road agent as well as the fire chief and the police chief. And
yes, we're looking at, we will look at that and see what we can do.
And propose those items to the select board, or propose them to the select board. My other suggestion would be, ultimately, you're looking for us reviewing this and providing positive feedback to the select board to saying, yes, the planning board supports that. I think what Mr. Allard is getting at here is he's trying to get to a point where he can say, yes, I support the idea of doing that. Part of what my conversation here has been is trying to give you some information that will help get you to that point where you have positive board support to do.
I guess we have the information now from the road agents and everybody, and we'll certainly look at it, and hopefully we'll have a plan in place by the select board meeting.
Okay.
Point of clarification, does he come back with that plan to the planning board? Or go directly to the select?
It would go directly to the select board, and there will be a memo from the planning board that either says we're in support of this or we do not support it based on that.
So what I take now, what the memo would say is the planning board does not support 100% waiver. They feel that the road improvements that's recommended by the road agent should be accomplished before he gets the building permit, is what I'm taking from listening to this in order to put it in writing.
I don't know.
If not, then he would have to come back and show you exactly what he's doing. That's the point.
So my general feeling on that is I understand what it's like trying to get on a builder's schedule. So I don't know if I would necessarily say like that he has to have it executed, he has to have the improvements done before the building side, I would,
No, it doesn't have to be before the building site. What,
well, you
before the
said
build, before
the
that.
building permit's
No, but-
issued.
Yeah, see, I can't issue a building permit until the selectmen approve it. So the selectmen have to make a decision whether or not to issue the building permit. And they're gonna say, are you giving us these improvements or not giving us these improvements before they're gonna say whether or not that I can issue the building permit. So because you guys give a recommendation to the select board, he's asking to do nothing right now. And you guys feel like you want something done. What is it you feel you want done that's gonna be the recommendation to the select board so that you're meeting your portion of this process that you gotta go through?
So I guess my,
Let me answer that, John. For me, to me, the waiver request should include that. In other words, it shouldn't say, I don't want to do it. It should say, I don't want to do that, I want to do this.
Well, that's
The applicant should, in the waiver request, tell us what they're recommending as opposed to 10% or whatever.
So with that said, then he would have to figure out what he wants to do, come back with his board so that board can make their recommendation going forward, which is gonna kick it out 2 more weeks. That's the point we're at, and that's where the discussion's going. I just want to make sure that's how this board feels and that's what you want to do.
You think, Andy?
my recommendation on it would be that, there should be some sort of proposal made to upgrade and improve the road based on the recommendations of the road agent. And I don't feel like it has to come back before me, because at the end of the day, we're not approving it. It's the select board that's approving it. So making sure that,
But from staff's point of view, what is the recommendation the planning board is making to the select board? That's what we got to put in writing.
oh, I'm getting there.
All right.
Hang on a second. My recommendation is that Mr. Mosier would have a plan to present to the select board addressing the road agent's concerns in a way that the select board feels is meaningful. So from my take, I would say, we've reviewed it, we've provided feedback to the applicant stating that he needs to, that contributing 10% may not be the solution the select board chooses in this instance, but accomplishing either some or all of the items that have been proposed by the road agent would accomplish the goal of continuously improving and upgrading the road to us farther along to the desired
And it seems the ones
client road.
that are doable are, the ditch lines need to be cleaned, some loads of gravel, and looking at the.
Just offer a given value dollars, $5,000, but he could use volunteer to help to accomplish it, not necessarily hire a professional.
Yeah, there's some,
But it should be a quoted value, I
Right,
think, in
but-
order to be quantitative. That's,
yeah.
you need something to be it might not cost him. Let's say that costs a lot of money to take a tree down nowadays,
Yeah.
especially if there's power lines around. So it could be, take them 2 trees down, fix that ditch and put in 2 loads of gravel, could come to $20,000. And if they do it themselves, they might be able to do it for 5, but it's all in, what a quote would be that the selectmen are looking at.
Right. And
Like-
that is a waiver would be granted
Based-
on those being done.
Yeah, so
right, which would mean John wouldn't be able to issue a certificate of occupancy at the end of it until
That work is done.
Until
It has
that
to be
work is
signed off.
Could issue a building permit,
I would issue the building permit, but I can't issue.
build a house,
Right.
go,
And it has to be signed off by me and the road agent that the work was accomplished by how that policy is looked at.
Okay. Okay, is,
Now that we have the recommendations, we'll certainly look at them and see what we can accomplish and hopefully everybody's happy.
That's the goal.
okay, so a couple of key things. I want to make sure we pull in our planning consultant who at one point had her hand up with requests. And I want to make sure I open it for public comment because there are people here that have had their hands up and been patiently waiting. And I want to give them the opportunity to comment positively, negatively, whichever way they see fit. Carol?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, but actually my question was already answered, so I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there anything else from the board before I allow the other residents that are here to speak on? At this time, if you wouldn't mind, sir, I'd like to allow public comment.
Certainly.
Anybody else
Sure.
can
Sure.
share. I don't know which gentleman would like to speak first.
Could you come up to the
To the
the
table here.
laptop?
Oh, okay. Scott Point, 535 McDaniel Shore Drive. As the voluntary road agent. When we're speaking about Mr. Moreau's recommendations, are they anything other than this, what appears?
No.
Okay. I mind if I, because this seems to paint a picture with a rather broad brush. I'm not quite sure what he wants done. So I take it, I can know a problem with me contacting Mr. Moreau, trying to get some specifics out of him, then formulating a response for the selectmen. Is that acceptable?
You can certainly put your own spin on it.
Excuse me?
You can put your own spin on it if you want to propose something
Okay.
else. You know,
Because I think as Barge was telling you, I think some of these items do take care of on a regular basis, arguably to a greater extent what he's asked.
Some of it's taken down. Took them down.
Well, I don't, so again, since I don't know what he's talking about, I did cause 2 trees that had started to lean against electric lines down. I bet you he's got a bit water.
Sure.
Mr. McCack?
Yeah, so what I heard from the select board in developing the policy, it was in part a separation from road agent necessarily. Do your job, you talk about being the voluntary road agent for Michael Point Road. And so I don't think what the select board intended.
McDaniel Shore.
McDaniel Shore, what did I say?
Michael Point.
Michael Point. Okay, but.
I can do that too.
That one's
Please
paved.
excuse me. So thank you. But I don't think that what the select board intended is that the town road agent would go and develop a plan for all these private roads. You will have that well under control. It sounds like you do a good job at it. I think what the select board looks for from the road agent is just what you described, a broad brush stroke. Hey, my area of expertise is roads. In this case, the applicant is asking for a waiver. Now, the applicant isn't necessarily saying the road is perfect. What the select board is looking for from the road agent is, hey, can you describe to us the conditions of the road from your perspective? And so I don't necessarily think the direction that the select board has given the road agent is to work with applicants to prescribe hey, check all these boxes, all of these things, and I, as the road agent, will be supportive of your application. And I think it sounds like you all have a pretty good condition of the road, the maintenance of the road, and what could be done to improve it. I think what the select board wants to see with the policy is you working with your neighbors and your road association, formal or informal, to say, hey, these are the types of things that we could do for the road, and these are the right things to do for the road. Because, no offense to Mark, he's a brilliant guy, but you guys know on the road, know where improvements spent on your road. So I want to caution the planning board to some extent from what I've heard from the select board and you, sir, as an applicant, to expect the road agent to give you a path to check these boxes, do these specific things. That's kind of what happened before. One of the things that the select board was trying really unhappy. This is what we plan to do. Like you discussed with the plan, where you propose to do nothing in addition to what's already being done, which is certainly a position to take. Won't know until meeting with the select board whether the select board thinks or a position that they're willing to support. But I guess if the plan is to go to the select board at the next and say we're willing to do X, Y, and Z to the road as improvements, we can quote to put a dollar figure on it, but we're going to do it with volunteers, like we do. I wouldn't necessarily expect a prescription from the road agent of what should be done to improve it. That should be your, the applicant and the road association, that should be yours to decide what you need to be done. Like I mentioned before, the incremental improvements over time of these roads that are, old camp serve, but the majority of seasonal residents, now year-round residents. So just a note about the expectation.
Thank you, that's helpful. Well, so are you suggesting the road agent is not going to give specifics, ergo, so the board refers to his recommendations, we take the recommendations as a broad brush recommendation to come up with a road improvement, if not some capital improvement program?
Just be specific in what you want to do.
Right, you could take, you could photo document.
But for me to know what the selectmen want to see, and they want to see a plan.
I would say that I think their goal is to see a plan, and not necessarily a plan that extends beyond what you intend to do as your application, but they definitely want to see specifics, and that's what's spelled out in the policy. I think the difference is they're not expecting their direction that they've given to the road agent isn't that he developed that plan for them.
I understand.
And so that's why, you nail on the head when you said it's painted with a broad brushstroke, because I think that's the exact direction that the select board gave the road agent. Paint with a broad brushstroke. Give us the general sense of the road from your area of expertise. And because there's implications for the road agent to go drive down your road and say, you need to take that tree down, that tree down, that tree down, clear out this ditch, clear out that culvert. And the road agent has enough roads to worry about, right? You mentioned Ross Road, but there's 80 miles of town maintained roads that the road agent is responsible for. He doesn't want, and the select board doesn't want to put him in charge of the private roads, but they do rely on his broad opinion in cases of issuing building.
So based on that concept, if you come up with 6 trees or 8 trees or 10 trees or whatever it is that you feel is going to do the stuff in the road, and how much ditch line you feel has to be addressed and fixed, if you could put that all down on paper to tell the selectmen that's what you're going to do, and if you can have like a realistic figure for what that would cost if you hired it out, they could say, even if it's, like I said, even if it's only 10,000 and not 23,000 or whatever, to say then they're willing, if they're willing to grant the difference, to say, yeah, if you meet that, then we'll move forward. Just so you get an idea how to deal, I think, with the select board moving forward. And saying that, I'm not saying they're going to grant a waiver for anything less than the 23,000, but you can make that presentation and see where it takes you.
Okay. Thank you.
Nope. Sir, yeah, a comment?
Getting a range of camera here so I can smile. Yeah, how about that? My name is Carl Arndt. I'm 3 doors down from Mr. Mosier. I used to teach at UNH. The last 13 years of my life, I taught in what used to be East Germany. There's a reason for mentioning all this backlog here. And there have been days when I remember the fire that Mr. Mosier mentioned, and the trucks were right in there, there's no problems. And having the guy that plows and sands our road live at the beginning of it, there are many a time when I've been able to get out in the morning and have trouble only when I got to the asphalt road that this town maintained. I'd hit something there. But so I think in the winter access, I think we're in pretty good shape. Mr. Mosier mentioned something, or he kind of pointed over his shoulder and he said, neighbor Carl, they're cutting down trees. There were a couple that were really, really rotten. And the crew, our maintenance crew that summer, we were out looking at those and I said, yeah, I'll take that one down. And they all looked at me and they said, Jesus, you crazy? That's rotten. We need to get a bucket in there and all that kind of stuff. I said, now I'll put a rope up in there with a ladder up in there and ran a rope across the road and to come along, put him on the come along in there just to take up the final couple of ticks on it so that it was way, way the hell out of the way of the tree. And I made my cuts and it was rotten. It was like about 2/3, And I dropped that sucker and I said, hey, I'm 83. What have I got to lose? We need to get 3 out of there. So that took care of it. The reason that I mentioned my teaching in Germany, some of you may recall in the international news, the fiasco of otherwise perfectly organized Germany building an airport up by Berlin-Brandenburg. I'm not good on dates and figures. Hey, I'm 83. but I think they were delayed like about 18 years with mega millions of delay costs because they had signed contracts with airliners to be landing there. And the reason they kept getting pie on their face, I think it's open about a year now, maybe. And they were using it as a place to put refugees, because what happened was, and this is my reason for mentioning all of this crap, what happened was a little bit what I think is Mr. Mosier's problem here too, sort of running between legislative periods, between readings on how things need to be done. What happened was all of the licenses, all of the permits were given by all of the people involved. They started building the airport. They got the whole damn thing done. They were ready to open the gates and to get ticket counters. And somebody said, we changed the fire laws and it is not up to the new fire law code. Well, Christ, it seems to me, if you've got all of your permits lined up, it's ridiculous for somebody within the legislative body to say, hey, you applied under whatever permit, you're fulfilling that, but we changed it on you. So anyway, I just don't want my neighbor down the road getting caught in. I mean, I realize my comment may be totally inappropriate here, but I just have nasty thoughts in that direction. And we profs tend to be overly verbose, and I apologize for that. And you know, when we get to be 83, we start losing it. And by the way, in terms of improvements, on our last survey of the gutters, where I was pushing used to be the handle of a roof rake, and pushing that with a taped on hole at the end of it under a gutter all the way through the road. I managed to be long enough for that, and dragging all the crap out of that. We determined that one of the gutters, it was indeed in need of replacement, and we're looking at that in our next budgetary session. So that's in the plan, and we're fighting now about whether we're going to do one or do two of them right away, and you know, cut costs and quantity. Let me end this maybe with a little bit of levity. Did I thank you for your time and direction? No, I didn't. Thank you for your time and your suggestions in getting the proposal before the planning board, and I hope to be supporting Mr. Mosier there as well. Although I have some surgeries coming up, but I'll be there for you, I hope. A little hint of levity, thinking back to the previous applicant's discussion of landscaping, Mr. Mosier has one of the most beautifully landscaped lots on our entire circle out there. He's got an enviable group of tall grasses and, you know, rare fescue and different kinds of grasses. He's got wildflowers down in there. I mean, every time I walk my circular, which I try to do to keep my knees in some order, I admire his landscaping in his garden, which is tough when you've got a lot that goes like that. And the house that he's proposing to put up there, which is a main post and beam, is going to be such an improvement over the ramshackle collapsing shack that was there. So I very much hope that somehow we can get this whole thing resolved and get Mr. Mosier in. And again, I thank you for your time. That's it. Carl Arndt signing off at long last. And I see one or two smiles, so I guess the landscaping thing was good. Thank you again.
You see what type of neighbors I have? We're all.
You see what kind of neighbors I got?
We're a team. We will do what's necessary, and we're be looking at
the consultant, the last applicant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll look at the suggestions and we'll make a proposal to address them at the next meeting at the planning board, select board. Planning board. Thanks.
So this is the planning board. The select board's where you're going.
Select board is okay. Thank you for keeping me straight. Yeah.
So
anyway,
does this planning board agree with that recommendation to propose it moving forward to the select board, that doing nothing, we do not support it, but coming up with a plan to address a reasonable number of recommendations that, yes, we can.
I think we had to add a little bit that Andy's gonna work with Vanessa, writing it up with the concept of what you guys talked about?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll-
the time,
I'll-
the next, if you have the time the next few days.
I'll
so.
figure out how to get some language
I know it has
crafted.
to-
Obviously, we're gonna run into any of the Hampshire
Mm-hmm.
policies, so.
We've already, this is not the first one.
I have another neighbor, Chris Dundorf, who's an amazing lumberjack, I guess you'd say. The last time we were cutting trees down, he was there with chaps and pulleys, and boy, he made it look easy. So we have the expertise, and we will look at the suggestions, and we'll come back with a request, with a plan of some kind.
Sounds good. You want to get a, just check and see whether it's on board?
So roll call vote on proposing it that doing nothing, we do not support doing nothing, but we do support coming up with a plan to.
Yeah,
them to do right, a reasonable plan.
reasonable
to
plan for
improve.
approximate market value, not necessarily actual cost, but market value.
Right.
We'll do our best to come up with something, yeah. Thank you for the direction. I'm kind of flying blind here, and I think we all have the same ultimate motives in mind, is to keep the road passable and accessible, and not adversely affect the quality of life, because we all love living in Barrington, and especially out on Mendham's, and we all want that to remain.
A number of people on here live on private roads too.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you can certainly understand the issues and stuff, yeah.
we're in the same boat.
Thank you for sort of guiding my ship down, hopefully, to
To success.
Nap, aye.
Howard, aye.
Tessie, aye.
What's the line?
Suchi, aye.
Happy yellow line.
So
Thank you.
we'll draft that up. As discussed, that doing nothing is not what we support, but
Yep.
coming up with a reasonable market value plan that may not necessarily be done at market value by doing it with alternative labor
Mhm.
support.
we'll get on that, and we'll get back to you on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Look.
you.
Thank you for bearing with the long-winded guy.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Item number 6, which is another private road application for 15 Eagle Drive. Mr. Edward Friedman, map 110, lot 6. I believe Mr. Friedman is on remotely.
Yeah, Mike, you can come on.
Oh, there we go.
There.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for hanging in there.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I am coming to the planning board seeking a waiver.
Okay.
Should I continue?
Please.
So I am coming in seeking a waiver to, I guess it's RSA 674-33-1B, which pertains to the road upgrade and the 10% of the construction costs. I'm seeking that waiver. My thinking is the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, and my response would be, we are seeking this variance or this waiver as it pertains to a private seasonal cottage and will not affect the public. Golf course way is paved adjacent to the cottage at 15 Eagle Drive. And in fact, the proposed construction serves to increase surrounding property values. Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. The construction of the foundation to support the existing cottage is proposed to create additional living space and stop further seasonal movement of the existing concrete block piers. However, no new bedrooms are created by this construction. It is currently a 3-bedroom cottage, and 2 bedrooms will remain upstairs, and we propose to put 1 in the lower level space. And the bedroom that is vacated will become a stairway. Number 3, substantial justice is done. Substantial justice is done by not restricting the use of the property for the owner's benefit, and is not outweighed by the gain of the general public. Number 4, the values of the surrounding properties are not diminished. The goal of this construction is to have no impact on surrounding properties. Surrounding property values are sure to be increased, as they have already. Golf Course Way exists as a paved road for about 340 feet and nearly meets the requirements of the town road with emergency vehicle access. I have pictures listed below, shown below. And the literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship, and no fair and substantial relationship exists between the public, the general public purposes, and the ordinance provision and specific application of the provision to the property. And my response would be, where Golf Course Way isn't wide enough as required by ordinance, is not adjacent to 15 Eagle Drive, requiring me to upgrade the road that is not near my property would be a hardship and not in the spirit of the ordinance. And the proposed use is a reasonable one. The request is reasonable as is allowed by building code to construct living space below cottage. And then I just have pictures of Eagle Drive and the access to Eagle Drive and Golf Course Way. As you can see, it's a paved road for about I think it was 340 feet. It's approximately 21 feet at its widest where it meets Eagle Drive with 2-foot shoulders. And as you move along, heading uphill, it's 15 feet wide with 2-foot shoulders, gravel on at least one side, and vegetation with gravel on the left. And the same thing on the subsequent figure 4, looking north, 15 feet wide with 2-foot shoulder. This is adjacent to my residence. And then looking south toward the pond, you get a chance to see some of the improvements they've made with 15-foot and 2-foot shoulders. And Eagle Drive is, however, a paved road, 12-foot with 2-foot shoulders. And then the same thing looking further uphill on Golf Course Way. And finally, I believe, is looking south at the pond from probably almost at the top of the hill. And again, about 15 feet with shoulders. And I think that was about all I had to ask for this waiver. And listening to everybody else, I think we were good. We would ask for the waiver for the 10% fee, but taking into account what the road agent suggested, that we join a road association. We have not done so. We'd be happy to join the Nippo Lake Association and contribute to that on a yearly basis. Thank you.
How old is the pavement?
About 2 years old.
So it'd be at a point where it'd be.
Brand new pavement going down through there. That's the point. It's like a foot narrow, and then what the regulations is. So to try to widen that out would be probably do more damage than good.
It's kind of a funky situation, though. You go on a non-paved road quite a distance, and then you hit the paved section, and then Eagle Drive is not paved. So the road he's on is not paved.
Right. And if you look at the picture, you can see his house on the left when they show Eagle Drive.
Yeah.
Another house on the right, and then way in the back of that, there's 2 more houses. So it's really like almost like a shared drive that goes back for what Eagle Drive is. It has a name as an E911 must have been in the road.
Right.
So if he did the upgrade and anything, it would be just driveway is what that requirement is. So it could be like maybe like a load of gravel or something in front of his house to build up that area where the rest of it that little bit. It wouldn't be a complete waiver as asking for, but at the same time, wouldn't be anywhere near that 10% cost.
I drove down there today. And the paved road is really good, but as you say, at the beginning, out in Stagecoach, you go half the distance unpaved, then you hit the section near your house, two of your houses. And I noticed the 21-foot wide areas were Bailey Way across from you, so that accounts for it. So you have a little lip there toward your road, but 100-foot. And I kind of agree, just a couple loads of gravel, because the swale on the right is what, 4 feet deep or so and very wet. There's not much you could do with that, even though the right of way, according to the town, is 35-foot road right of way, but most of it's on the guy's property toward the lake.
Yeah.
I mean, the estimated cost is 64,000 as I saw, so we're only,
$6,400.
so 64,000 was construction cost, so the fee would be 10% for 6,400. It's not,
Thanks.
yeah, I agree with
But
that.
I don't think you
I'm
could
getting there.
spend, you could
No, it's not
spend it
massive.
on this
It's not
road.
It's not a huge sum.
No, the
Not
only thing
insignificant,
that
but-
caught my attention is that when you look at the paved section coming down, there isn't a whole lot of shoulder or turnout to get onto that, so you're gonna destroy that pavement coming out off the dirt road onto the asphalt road.
The existing dirt road that goes in.
On Eagle Drive out onto, Golf Course Way. Thank you.
Is it Power Road or something? And is it-
So that would be my concern. You put all that money into the pavement and you're gonna end up destroying the edge of the pavement coming out onto Golf
And
Course
that's
Way.
where that, if you did a little gravel in front of the house, that's would support the edge of that road right there, like coming in so that it wouldn't get into that.
Right, my thought was either that or just have them put in like a 2-foot shoulder paved in and then gravel it. That way you guarantee you're not destroying that piece of it and it's gonna be seam lined there anyway. So you're not gonna destroy your pavement coming out. You'll destroy that 2-foot section
Like our
before you.
driveway regulations, the
Right.
way you gotta have a little bit of pavement. I
Right.
think it's 16.
16 feet, yeah.
It says that you gotta have coming in so it protects the shoulder of the
Right.
road.
Might be an option, just do the 16 feet is required on a driveway, right?
Which then protects Golf Course Way as you're coming from Eagle Drive on.
So typically that 16-foot piece, depends on what they gotta do for dirt work, usually runs anywhere from like $2,000 to $4,000 is what that typically runs. So that is what people are telling me, as long as there's no culvert. If there's a culvert, it's usually a couple of grand more when they're doing the stuff on their driveways when they're building.
You normally park on as you're facing your house from Eagle Drive, you park on the left,
There's a picture, yes,
not
there's
with
a
a car.
picture.
Yeah.
So would it make sense for you to pave in enough so that when you back out of your driveway, you'll be on pavement? And onto Golf Course Road? I mean, would that make sense to you? Well, what is the driveway wide? It's what, 20-foot wide driveway?
Probably 12 foot.
Driveway regulations is a 10-foot minimum width with a maximum of 18.
Yeah, so 18 feet.
Max,
on the
maximum.
But 10 feet.
So if they went like 12 feet wide to make a swale coming in by 16 foot deep, that whole idea of the 16-foot deep is if the pavement does break, it breaks slowly there, but it's not breaking in the roadway.
Right.
And, so you're estimating that'd be flourished, John?
Well, the stuff I know when they bond them for the highway department, if it's no culvert, they have them bond, because in the winter they can't always. They have them do a $2,000 bond if it's just paving on the end. They have them do a $4,000 bond if it's, gotta have a culvert.
Okay.
Because that covers the cost of getting it done. With the cost going up lately, it might be a little more than that, but if there's no culvert there, you're looking at probably a couple $1,000. And maybe let's say add another 1,000 because they probably gotta put some gravel base in, put that pavement on. So you're looking maybe at like a $3,000 thing if you just did that little apron.
And I wouldn't be to me, the gravel section, throwing a little gravel on the
Yeah, you can.
the non-paved section.
Right in front of the house.
Yeah.
They ended up bringing in, let's say, a truckload of gravel, shim it enough to make the pavement work, and then the excess gravel goes across the road.
Right.
Yeah.
You're only buying one truckload of gravel and then getting the pavement to come in at 16 feet. That's what you're talking about to try to.
Yeah.
I think that protects Golf Course Way. And
Helps the property.
yeah, right, helps create a reasonable upgrade to Eagle Drive and will firm up that road a little bit more down in there as well by putting a good load of gravel into it.
Of course, we're doing what we said we wouldn't do, which is design it, but.
Right.
But I think it's a good plan.
It's just those are suggestions from our end, is to say, here's how you could actually do that.
Yeah, I
And
think
it
if,
still would be a waiver because it's not the whole 10%.
Right.
but I think if, where you get a paved section already, what are you gonna do with the paved section? It's not,
It would probably do more harm than good to try to widen that section out
Yeah,
down through there
right,
because
yeah.
you would get into, like you said, trying to make that ditch line. To make that even a foot wider would probably cover up all the thing that you would get in. It wouldn't serve any real purpose to the.
Yeah, he's right on the corner, so I think in front of his house and, that,
There's only three driveways beyond,
Yeah.
on them.
Correct.
yeah, I think that would be,
I think that's
talking out of school here, but, I think you get a sense where
You
we're
guys
going.
think?
The waiver request, I think if you heard the previous discussion, the 0 is something we have trouble supporting, as you might have guessed. Some other plan, I think, would be more likely to fly.
Yeah, I think sitting here listening to you all, I think it's a sound idea to possibly pave a little 2-foot extension onto Eagle Drive where it meets Golf Course Way, and some gravel onto Eagle Drive. I would support that. If that's what John is referring to.
But you would have to get a quote on what it would cost to do that and then to get the gravel and have it spread and that apron put on. That way you can submit to the select board what that cost is going to be, so they can determine whether they think that's adequate, even if it doesn't meet 10%, so they have an idea of what the cost value is on.
All right.
And I think as long as it's a reasonable, to me, the 10% is the yes. Something less than that, if it's appropriate for the site, is something I think I can live with. 0, I don't think I can live with myself, but I'm only one person. But, if it's not the full 10%, but it's appropriate for the site, I think that's a reasonable waiver request.
All right.
I wish I had a funny story I could tell you to entertain you here. I got nothing.
I didn't know that
I
was
don't
where it was
know.
going. I didn't know that was where it was going.
So I just want you to understand that this decision that the planning board's making is going to be a recommendation to the select board. The select board is actually the ones that makes the final decision. So you understand that what they decide tonight isn't the final decision? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have consensus from the board based on the conversation with the applicant to, our recommendation is to do the 2-foot apron coming in, a load of gravel or more as appropriate if need be, and for the applicants offering to join the road association?
I think that's reasonable.
Now, just to make it, I just want to make sure it's clear so when it goes forward. The selectman policy says that association thing has to be recorded at the registry of deeds, or they have to accept the responsibility. So is that an official association that's already done where everybody signed it and that's recorded at the registry of deeds now? Will you be adding your name as part of that whole thing? Because that might come up as part of that selectman thing, because they want to make sure that the maintenance is recorded. So if you ever sell your house or anything, the future people understand that there's a maintenance agreement that has to continue going forward. It doesn't just die.
Mm.
If you look on the application for the private road, it does talk about that being recorded. I'm not sure if that association is an official association. It's all recorded in the registry of deeds or not.
It is, I live there, yes.
Oh, it is?
It is, but there's a road association that we go, but then we have 2 road agents, road people, whatever, one on Flower Drive and one on Nipple. I'm not sure about Eagle.
Is it recorded at the registry, you know?
not the road association, not the road agent, whatever you want.
No, that wouldn't.
So if that's the case, what happens is if you can't get the association to go along and get it recorded, you would fill out something that says you accept responsibility of keeping the road, maintained, and you could sign both of your names and then get that recorded too, and that would meet that requirement for the select board. You can have that discussion with them going forward. I just think you ought to understand that that is one of the requirements they have in there. They want to try to make sure that future maintenance, you could build a 6-lane highway, and if you don't maintain it in 20 years, you're back to a little go path going through the woods. So that's the whole idea why they don't want that to happen.
Okay. Maintaining the piece that I have accepted responsibility for, the apron and the gravel.
My understanding would be the access from class 5 all the way in is what they're looking for, but you can have that discussion with them, but my understanding would be from the town maintained road all the way down to your house.
So,
But you've got an association that does it. That's why if there's an association that's recorded and you're part of that association, that would be the cleanest way. There's actually an RSA that got approved last year that states that the association can actually sue the other people on the road for maintenance if they don't pay. So with that being said, there is a legal recourse with the whole association, even with you, that everybody participates in the maintenance. But the town is trying to be proactive to make sure that that's done. So like I said, the roads don't fall apart. That would be fine.
you're not personally responsible for the whole stretch, but you're gonna be part of the road association, which would be. And to John's point, I'm president of our road association. We just brought somebody to court because they didn't pay. So, having people that are not formally part of the association or not, contributing on a regular basis becomes an issue that you have to deal with. That's something we want.
And the law says you can do that now.
We did it before anyway, so. Under the reasonable benefit clause, so.
Do we know who to contact for the association?
I don't know.
All right, you know that.
It'd be Nippo, somebody.
If you can get a quote on that stuff on the road that you propose to fix, so you have that for the selectmen.
You might want to contact the people at 124 Golf Course Lane. They actually own all of that. They deeded. It's deeded as a common lot. It's the whole road is 3.4 acres, including your road, Bailey Way, and Golf Course Road. So check with them.
John,
All right.
Did his homework. All right.
John.
Thank you.
They should know what's going on.
So are you
Yes.
good with that one? Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's everything.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, we got to vote on. Oh, there's public comment because there's nobody else here. I can assure you of that. No, so no more funny stories. Voting on sending the motion to the select board, recommendation to the select board. What did I say? Okay. Oh, yes, we're voting on sending the recommendation. Sorry, not motion. So roll call, please.
Capiello, aye.
Suchi, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
Tessie, right?
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Good
Hi,
night.
y'all too.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay.
Right, are we ready to tackle these?
I just have a few things for the board before we adjourn. Just to give you guys kind of town planner update. I'm not sure if it was done before, but I just wanted to touch base with you. There's a lot going on in our land use department office, as you all know. We're looking to do a master plan for land use and transportation chapters. Working with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission to accomplish those things. Let's start doing it in a work session if that's acceptable to you all. In July is kind of the time frame. The land use chapter is recommended to be updated every 5 to 10 years. The last one was in 2016. And our transportation chapter has never been updated from the original master plan, 2004.
So it's time.
Yes, so it's time. There was also discussion. I met with the Conservation Commission chair, he was interested in setting up a subcommittee with 2 planning board members and 2 conservation commission members in relation to wetland and wetland buffers and to come together to get more of a to make a subcommittee a little bit more in their regulations possibly. So just want to see if there's, just put that out there if anybody is interested, or we can maybe look at doing this as part of our, maybe under the master plan updates, because they will be addressing in the land use update portion, like wetland buffer. So if you want to kind of incorporate it then too, instead of having 2 different.
I mean, what's the concern that we're looking for there?
Yeah, I guess I'm not following that either.
'Cause we just redid the main wetland issue.
I
Well,
know.
that's what it came from, and this is kind of more of an essence time. It was brought up, but what you heard from the Conservation Commission chair during that process is, hey, we're gonna support one single exempt article, but that's not the solution. The solution is a more dynamic wetland buffer ordinance. It doesn't say it's 50 feet everywhere or a 9.6, but kind of takes into consideration functions and values of the wetland, deciding when and where a wetland buffer should apply. And so the meeting I had, it kind of seemed like people responded and said, hey, yeah, we think this whole ordinance needs to be right also. Taking out this one section isn't going to solve it. And so I think what Ken Grossman, the conservation acting on, hey, it seems like there was an appetite for the planning board to work on this, to propose to voters a kind of whole new wetland buffer ordinance replacing what's in there right now. That more specifically addresses the concern, Ron, and you had some, that just taking out that one bit didn't accomplish.
I have a question. Is there a model to follow somewhere?
And I think that's what Vanessa was mentioning about incorporating the land use chapter of the master plan update and engaging SRPC helpful to that.
I would propose doing it as part of the land use chapter update.
Future land use update. You got them.
Yeah. Does everyone?
Sounds good.
Like why parse it out? Why not just make it all part of that whole?
And if we have questions after they want.
You can invite the Conservation Commission to the meetings when you're discussing them.
Yeah.
Sometimes a subcommittee of a couple people works. Sometimes you want more of the 2 boards sitting down face to face so that you get input from everybody.
Would they be, John, would they be open to putting a proposal for us before we actually have it'd be nice to see what their thinking is, and then maybe we sit down with them.
Okay. So it might be worth having the 2 boards meet as a part of a work session, actually invite the Conservation Commission to come to your meeting and say, what are you guys thinking about this? Here's where, we have concerns, here where you have concerns, and you can kind of, because I think the whole concept behind this was, even though Mr. Jeffries feels that 9.6 can't be graded by the planning board, it can. That's a whole legal process that was done. And the reason why it was done, I was on the board when it happened. So the planning board actually looks at their applications when they come forward. So, and the ZBA, if it went for a lead through the ZBA, they're going to look at it on a microscope in that one little section with that 5 criteria to the hardship and the whole bit. Where you as a board looking at your site review regulations or your subdivision regulations, you're going to say, okay, you can still work on our regulations by maybe moving it this way a little bit. Just like that other guy you were talking about, maybe you can make the building a little narrow or do something to try to make it work. Where if they went to the ZBA first, they got to either say, we're going to give you a variance or don't give you a variance. So it made more sense to come to the planning board. And the planning board, the ZBA doesn't take input from the Conservation Commission on their variances, but the planning board applications all go to the Conservation Commission, so they have a chance to give impact back to you guys on their recommendations. So to take it out of the planning board hands actually makes no sense at all. I think the whole process and setting it up this way has worked really good in the past, and I think it's going to work good in the future. The difference you're going to have, because you put it on that ordinance change, put it on lots of records where it didn't exist before, you're probably apt to have more applications because these lots weren't designed to be built on without going into them buffers when they were originally subdivided. So even if they center it, just like on those undersized lots, when they go for a variance, they center it as much as possible. They try to make it conform as much as possible, but there's no way not to give them a variance. You're going to end up with some of that same situations with your 9.6. And if you turn around and say, wow, you can't meet the buffer requirements, so therefore you can't build or you can't do anything, you're basically saying, you've been paying taxes on this land as something all along for this purpose, and now we're telling you, too bad you threw your money away because we're not gonna let you do anything going forward. So there's a point to where that hardship that's in the ZBA, that 5 criteria, which is the same hardship that was laid out on the private road that they read through with that criteria, it might be, it's similar to what the whole thing is in 9.6, where it gives you the criteria in there about how to apply the 9.6 and how to grant the relief. It's actually written into the zoning regulations already. So,
Yeah, but I don't think it's that arduous, John. To me, you know, the 50-foot buffer is a de facto protection. Less may be appropriate given certain circumstances. So, you know, the 50-foot is not, we can do a waiver, it's appropriate for that site. De facto 50 feet, we say, oh, that always works. Less can work given certain circumstances.
right, because of the functioning of the values of it.
Yeah.
So you get, sometimes you get a big wetland area, another big wetland area, and you really have a drainage ditch that connects them. That drainage ditch, because it connects, is actually considered wetlands. Even if the big ones weren't connected to that, you look at it as a drainage ditch, it serves no function, has no functioning or values other than it connects.
Yeah.
So that would be part of the reason why you could say this one seems realistic to be closer. And if you look at our regulations, if it's under 3,000 square feet, there's no buffer to that wetland anyways, it's already written in the regulations. But they try to address some of those, the real small wetlands don't have those functioning values that you would look at as a larger one would.
But getting back to the original, I was looking for a laser approach. Would the Conservation Commission be willing to submit something in writing before we have a joint meeting? You think that's?
I think Vanessa could ask them.
I definitely would. That way we can review it and then.
You understand what they're truly looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that gives us like a framework to talk through as we're updating.
Give us a review and then a joint meeting,
Or it could be they're trying to find out how you feel about it too. That's why, but I mean, to ask them first, if they got an idea of something they're already thinking about, it's a good idea.
Yeah, if they want a joint meeting and they have nothing in mind, they want us to tell them what we think.
Well, they want to have a
Right now,
brainstorm.
tell them I don't think anything.
Groups together.
It sounded more like a brainstorming meeting
That's
initially,
how I
and
took
then
it, too.
form something for a.
Yeah, but they're the ones bringing it up, so they must have a concept or an idea. So have them form that up and tell us what they're thinking.
But let's use their brains before we have to put all our power.
Yeah.
Why waste
I
our,
have limited brain power. I can only, limited bandwidth. I can only go so many.
I mean, lighting is a top portion of that brain right there.
Well,
So
you
we
know
don't
what?
want to like.
Even with a
stray too
magnifying
far
glass,
from
I
it.
have a hard time seeing those little numbers they put in there in that little index.
You know, I always go with a chart because I can't see the little thing. I can't see the number.
I know, I put my glasses on, I got a magnifying glass, and I still have a hard time reading those little.
I just have
Okay.
a couple quick more things and then we
Yep.
can get out of here. I just want to let you know, I'm trying to implement a new template for future agenda notice of decision to make it be a little bit easier. If anybody would like to see an example, I can email you an example or pass around one that I had brought. Also, don't forget about the training opportunity next week. I hope everybody has RSVP'd if you can make it. And we also have discussion in our offices, previous board, when people came in to continue their cases, either to be in person or virtually. And sometimes many of the applicants have to pay their surveyors. Those people come in to say that they just want to be, their case to be continued. Do you still want to proceed to having in-person continuances of a case? Or would you be willing to accept them in writing? I know it could be case by case basis, depending on why an application is continued.
I was okay with it writing, but Jeff wanted it.
Yeah.
In person, I guess,
Yeah.
but he.
I don't know.
traditionally-
We never say no.
I know, he's the only one that wanted them here in person, that's
Yeah.
why we thought it would.
writing's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
like
fine with it in
if,
writing.
like, for example, these two applicants can't make the deadline, they say, can we have a continuance because we can't make the deadline due to X, Y, and Z.
To me, we've never said,
Spell out their
Why is it
reasoning.
for continuance?
That's-
Okay.
and that was Jeff's main,
With CMA, or waiting
Yeah.
for a state approval or something like that.
Yeah.
to get the reason.
and that's the main reason Jeff wanted to bring him in. He wanted to ask him questions, but Jeff likes to ask questions, so. We were not as thorough as, we're not as thorough as Jeff,
Just
so.
wanted to check with that because we had that, the case that was withdrawn initially, they were going to continue.
Well, I mean,
That's a moot point now,
I
but
would-
I mean,
is
just.
everybody okay with it in
Just
writing?
to circle
Yeah,
back,
yep.
the training opportunity next Tuesday is in this room at 6 o'clock,
It
or is it
is-
at the?
By public
Oh,
safety.
sorry, public safety
It's at the
building,
public safety.
right, at 6 o'clock.
6 to 10.
It was
10.
2 hours.
You see everybody, typical planning board meeting, huh?
Almost 10 now.
Planning board hours.
Over 2 hours, you gotta get this.
Oh, is that the rule? All right. Noted.
You kidding me?
I'll
Under,
make sure they go to 2:01, just so I can justify it.
under 10, if it's less than 10 o'clock, then it's shorter than our usual meeting.
And there's also been some discussion, because I know summer's coming up. Our July meeting is the day after July 4th. We want to move, you guys, or you can mull it over, don't make a decision today. If you want to move it, keep it.
I'll probably have some burns from fireworks that day.
It'll be July 5th will be our meeting day, so,
But if you post it ahead of time, you could do it on the second Tuesday instead of the first Tuesday to get away from
which
holiday.
is July
I don't want to do July.
Yeah,
12th. Or we can, if you don't want to meet, if you don't think you're
You
gonna
have
make
to
a
have one
quorum,
meeting a month.
but you have to have
anyways.
at least one. We have one scheduled for the 19th as a work session, July 19th work session.
What's the workload? Does it look like we can go with one meeting for July?
we always do. For the most part, we do July and August, one meeting.
And
Your
on-
master plan chapter.
Yeah, so that
And
was
so
the
we
only
have
thing I would think.
applications and the master plan chapters on that second meeting in July.
I'm
Pack
okay with,
your-
I'm okay with long meetings, but I feel bad for people
Pack your
waiting
dinner,
until 10 o'clock for their slot.
pack your dinner, pack your Red Bull, pack your PJs if need be, because
That's the-
you'll
that's-
love
Okay.
the meeting.
Dan's not on the board.
Yeah, but Andy, that's good for us, but I mean, if you're like these people right here, they gotta sit through,
I don't disagree. It's a long run, but
I mean, we've had meetings go to 11 o'clock and somebody's on the phone or here in person from 6:30 and their thing, case gets, little small thing is gonna 10:45. I mean, it's just not right. So what I'm saying is, I'd rather have 2 meetings and have a reasonable time frame than have one meeting.
It doesn't happen often.
Okay.
so what Ron's saying is he's volunteering to run the meeting on the 5th because I will not be here.
I'm saying I don't want the 5th.
But we can always, the other thing that we had suggested due to that holiday week is to move it to July 12th for the public hearing meeting, and then the following Tuesday would be your work. Is that right? The 19th.
That's a better plan than the 5th.
Really getting into boat time here at this point. And I'm gonna
It's up
start
to you,
pushing
Chairman.
back.
Mr. Chairman, you're in charge.
Something to think
And
about.
we could look at
What-
that.
let me
Everyone-
call. So I will poll the board for your preference. One long meeting or 2 meetings, the 12th and the 19th.
Not so long.
Yeah, I'd rather do it too short.
I mean, and it also depends on the workload. Besides the master plan chapters, if you don't have any applications, then
It depends on how quick Stratford Regional gets all the stuff together. Sometimes they try to get stuff together, but they got other things going. They might have to kick it back a little bit depending on where you're at with it.
yeah, they were looking to come to our June 21st work session meeting, is what I discussed with them.
They might not
Prefer to
be,
earlier.
have a lot to do the following month. It might be they'll take a little longer than that. But at that June meeting, you could figure out where they're at and they want to come back in
And there's
to make a
two
discussion on
meetings.
that work session.
Well, you need to decide by then, because there's.
Yeah.
Dates for application.
I mean, you could have
In
the
June.
12th as your public meeting, as you normally do. And then you can adjust that work session thing depending on how Stratford Regional can produce and what they think they need for a timeline to move forward. Right.
So we have 2 long, 3 short. Joyce, do you have a preference?
This is the first I heard you might be here till 11 at night. Oh my God, what did I get into?
Welcome to the select board,
Oh,
the
wait, wait,
planning
the work
board, and
session.
everything else you're gonna be involved in.
Select board seems to be shorter.
You've been lucky so far.
Oh.
Well, no, you and Dan aren't there to yuck everything.
Hey, hey, hey.
Wait till you get into budgets. Get into budgets, it takes a little longer.
That's all.
No, that's.
I think 2 short meetings works better because it sounds like the second one might be optional.
It could be
It could
depending on
be.
how Stratford Regional
Yeah,
can do it. Yeah.
That's your work session.
Yeah, so let's do it that way. That's my suggestion.
July 12th being the public hearing.
Go,
July 19th.
go with Chairman. Make the call, bang the gavel.
On the 19th, okay.
Well, if I'm banging the gavel, it's one long meeting.
And what about August? Do we?
I will defer
not
to
talk
the
about August
majority
yet.
of the board,
Better.
even against my will.
You were the best.
We didn't talk about August either, and also we didn't talk about September, but September 6th is also the day after the holiday as well.
Not so much. I mean, if the July people are gone, we're gone.
I think September's fine, right?
Don't we have one meeting?
So August would be the
We have August 2nd
second
and
and
16th.
We always go with one meeting in August.
we always go with one meeting in August, and I will advocate for one meeting in August.
That might kick your master plan adoption down on the road a little farther, depending on how Stratford Regional can put stuff together after that June meeting.
Well, we better tell them to get their crap together and light a fire because like,
Well, then, the thing is, if they can't make June, they're gonna want August. That's what, I mean, July, after the June one. So it depends on how much you guys have for input and how much changes and what they have to do in order to bring that master plan forward.
so I can tell you my only conundrum is I know the last weekend in July, I am gone for a long weekend and I'm also gone the first, I guess it'd be the first full weekend, depending on which way you look at it, the week from the 6th to the 13th in August, so.
Let's work around your schedule, because I want to share this thing.
Well, I already told you, I am looking to.
We don't have to make a decision tonight, either on both those or either one.
So for you, the 2nd and the 16th in August would be fine, because you're.
You'll be here from both of them.
As I said, the 2nd would be tight because I already have committed plans for that weekend through.
So you just want to do one on the 6th?
Stretched out long weekend for me.
Advocating just one meeting in August as usual?
I would propose one meeting in August.
I'm all about one
We
meeting in
do
August.
people, what do we know?
It is August, it's hot and
The reason for the one meeting is because when Barrington got started, they had to get the hay in. So the people couldn't come to the public meeting because they had to get the hay in the barn.
That's a good one.
There you go.
Okay, no one
I gotta-
laughed at me.
I'll use that reason.
sure.
I gotta mow my lawn.
There you go.
So
You
I get hay to
no, you
put
have
in
to
my
hay
barn.
your
By August,
lawn.
you
You gotta
have to
hay
wear
it.
I mow it, then it turns to hay.
That when they ask for an absentee ballot?
So we don't have to decide tonight, right?
You don't have to decide tonight, but I just wanted to bring that up to get the discussion going. Since we are working also with Stratford Regional to get their master plan going, we have the funding for it in our professional services.
Well, I think you can take as a inclination that we want one meeting in August unless it's absolutely, unless the workload absolutely justifies too.
Yeah, I would propose, I mean, of course, all y'all to decide, but the 16th, since you're gonna be meeting almost back to back the 12th and the 19th.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more you guys would be, I don't want you guys to be burned out, you know what I mean?
I agree.
Despite that you're gonna be.
Does anybody care if we get burned out? Seem like it.
Remember the discussion we had about the culverts extending 8 feet past at the low point?
Yes.
Talked to Mark about it. Know what the reason is? People plow their snow at the end of the driveway. They're pushing it into the ditch line. What happened is the end of the culvert doesn't stick by enough, the snow plugs it up and they got a dam. Now all of a sudden they got water running out into the road when everything starts to melt. That's the whole reason for that culvert.
Makes sense.
8 feet past that end.
Yeah, but the flip side of that though, John, is if you're going across the road.
Yeah, no, we can talk about that.
Okay, we can talk about that more, but
I just thought that, that was a question, that everybody was hung up on.
So,
I'm still hung up on it, John.
So
That's
since it's
that's
But that can be discussed when Mark, when he comes in. I
Mark
thought
will
it was
be
a
at the
very
next.
valid answer when I asked him. That's why.
doesn't fly for me. I still have questions.
so since it's 9:30, are we all ready to talk about proposed site plan review regulation spreadsheets at this point?
I already brought it up.
You already brought it up.
Didn't
We
we,
gotta close it. We haven't done like every.
Adjourn and stuff.
I mean, wasn't,
Why is everyone in such a
we had
rush to go
agreement,
home?
we had agreement on this, it's like a couple of small things, right?
Yeah, it was,
It was like a couple of words here and there. That's all we done.
so this will go firmly on the agenda for next meeting then?
It will, along with subdivision regulations, which only have a couple like changes on it. And that was just due to market comment. So that one will be super fast.
I'll believe it when I see it. Nothing's
Well,
ever
and
super
Mark's
fast.
Mark's gonna talk about the culvert and answer any questions the board may have on that. And then we'll hash out.
And we didn't get all our changes that we suggested. That is, only part of them flew. I mean, the ones that didn't fly, I didn't understand. Kind of weird.
Was there-
We, when, yeah, we proposed those kinds of changes and Town voted on it and some passed and some didn't.
Oh, yeah, well, I think that's gonna be a fall thing. When you bring it back up, we run through it. We've got to do a better job with an education campaign. That way there aren't 35 vote no signs out there that don't actually align with what our zoning is or should be, and then we can.
The zoning
This year was
changes.
extenuating circumstances where the people out there saying no.
Yeah.
If you don't understand this and deal with it, you don't understand what it says on the ballot. And if someone says you gotta say no and you're confused, you vote no because you don't want to do something bad.
Even voted against
But
the
the
Steve
weird thing
Lindsay
is-
thing by what, 5 votes?
Yeah, which makes no sense at all.
Doesn't, but they just
But
were in a
two-
Two of
mood
the
to
three
vote no.
went and one didn't. It was like weird.
Well, what it is the signs they had with the number situation
Right.
was off one. So they said to vote against Steve Lindsay's when they wanted to vote against the home occupation thing because of the way it was listed on the ballot. So people were confused. They remembered that number, so they voted against it.
Yeah.
And because of 5 votes, it's a 10-vote swing. 5 people changed their mind. Now all of a sudden, it's a whole different vote.
Yeah.
Got a little-
Send Bob Russell
got a
down
little
to
time
talk
off.
to Lindsay. Explain what happened.
Well, yeah, and they're supposed to.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Because there's no words minced with that one.
Because
I think you're just gonna sit there and patiently
he
wait.
doesn't want the tape.
Are there any other items? No, motion to adjourn. Roll call vote.
Yes, your eye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone?
Napa, I have